Mitchell, thank you for coming, man.
Yes, sir, man. Thanks for fucking having me here, dude.
You're like a social media sensation right now. You're like blowing up all over YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and then like you started all this shit less than 2 months ago. Is that what it is?
As soon as Andrew Tate got banned, I saw the void in the market, you know, and I stepped in. That's what they were calling me. My friends are breaking my balls back in LA. They're like, "You're the Andrew Tate of comedy, man." I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that, please.
How much time have you spent in Florida? Is this your first time in this like part of Florida?
Yeah. I've only been to Miami pretty much just to do comedy.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah. This is a very different town than where you live right now.
Yeah. Well, LA.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
It's so funny because you made a comment when you walked in here about like this town, this kind of like bumfuck Florida town we're in right now.
Yeah, it looks like Cops. It looks everything in Florida looks like the show Cops. There's no sidewalks, right? It's just it looks like there should be a couple of people that escaped from an insane asylum walking down the street, a couple of crackheads, but no, we're in a nice area actually.
Yeah, there's a couple. Not really. It's a decent area. It's okay.
It changes quick. It changes quick. There's like one. It could be like a plantation style house, and then there's a gas station.
Yeah, it's funny that most people who make all the comments or that notice this kind of town and where it sticks out to them, all those people are from LA. They are always the ones to make the comments.
Yeah,
I think the only the last person who in here was freaking out was Jamie Kennedy when he crawled in here. He was like looking over his shoulder. He's like, "Where's the fucking crackheads?"
He's a bit of a hypochondriac. I know Jamie quite well.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
He's a bit of a hypochondriac. Where's the crackheads, man? He still won't touch my hand like after COVID. Like
really?
He's still like elbow bumps me.
Oh my god.
I'm like, it's over. Forget it. Just give me a goddamn handshake, weirdo.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And your podcast is fucking fascinating. I just listened to every episode. So it's
Thank you, brother.
It's like the format of that. You just decided to tell your own story episodically of like your life in crime and then kind of transition into interviewing people? Or?
Yeah, exactly. Like I would watch, in my YouTube feed, I see, every different kind of like drug and prison show because they're fascinating, right? But it's either like some, big cholo dude that is like the craziest shit I've seen in prison, and it's fascinating, but you can't listen to it for more than like 5 minutes because it's just the quality's usually poor. There's no kind of production value to it, or it's like some Oxford educated guy from Vice News who's like, "Let me tell you about the Sinaloa Cartel." It's like, no, motherfucker. I'll tell you about the Sinaloa Cartel. I've been with those guys. So I was like, maybe that's what I could do. I could do like a prison and a drug and a crime show, but from the perspective of somebody that's been in the life, but who also can kind of, I don't know, articulate it, bring like a news element to it, like a news quality element to it. So that's where I got the idea from. But no, I didn't plan to make it episodic, like track it through from the beginnings. I just kind of started. I just kind of went, and it organically kind of became this like chronological thing.
What gave you the idea to start it?
I think because I tell a lot of jokes on stage. I do comedy. I do stand-up comedy for the fans that don't know. And I tell a lot of these prison stories just because it's such good humor. So it's such good fodder for comedy. And I wrote a book actually during the pandemic, Days of the Trap, and it was pretty well received. So I was like, well, what if I extrapolated these stories and made it like true crime documentary style? Like what if I told you actually how drug trafficking works? Because we always hear about like the drug cartels, drug routes. Well, what does that mean? What's a drug route? How do you actually make money selling cocaine? What is prison actually like day to day? What do these things mean? I didn't see a lot of people doing that. So I don't know. That's just kind of what motivated me to get going with it.
And how long ago did you get out of prison?
Oh, it's been years. It's been like over a decade.
Over a decade?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I came home in 2012, beginning of 2012, and I was on parole. I had a 3-year tail, but I just blew parole and just moved to LA like immediately. Like I went home, lived with my parents, saved up some money, and moved to LA within like 5 months of being out of prison, and just started writing screenplays, started doing stand-up comedy. Yeah.
So you were
Never
like
looked back.
hyper motivated.
Hyper motivated,
turn your
dude.
life around when you got out.
Fuck yeah. Oh my God. For anybody who's like loafing, I recommend prison. I recommend a little prison bit for everybody, because when you lose time, like when you see the days of your life just getting flushed down the toilet, nothing is a better motivator. Like you want to get that time back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was like a really, also I went too far with it. Like I was like manic when I got out, you know, and I probably had PTSD from seeing shit in there or whatever. But yeah, it definitely changed my life for the better, I think, you know. I mean, I do regret like losing all this money I made, but I think it gave me direction, you know?
Yeah, man. I say it all the time because I've had quite a number of like ex-cons in here and people that have been in prison for a long period of time.
Yeah.
For long periods of time. And they're the most interesting people I've ever talked to. They
Yeah.
always have the most character. They're just the most interesting people.
Yeah.
For some reason,
Yeah.
something about spending lots of time staring at a wall, reflecting on your life and your previous experiences, it does something to you that is just unique.
Yeah. Well, also criminals, I don't know what comes first sometimes. I think the personality comes first. You know, I think that personality, that proclivity, whatever it is to, you know, like Roger Reeves, right? Pablo Escobar's main cocaine pilot. Like, what is it about? There's something in him, an angst, an energy that is just in him naturally that made him want to, like, you know, go be a bad boy, go, you know, step outside of like norms. That's what being in prison, that's what breaking the law is. It's like, it's antisocial behavior. So that's kind of in all of us, I think. But prison either makes you worse, makes you really go further into the darkness, or it makes you channel that antisocial inclination into something positive. So it made me want to go into show business and become a stand-up comedian. That's definitely antisocial, you know?
Right.
Like that's not normal either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like neither is podcasting.
No.
Right?
Yeah, for
like
sure.
your parents are like, what the fuck is this?
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
This is a job. But so yeah, I think it comes first. I think that being interesting, prison doesn't make you interesting, gives you interesting stories, but you end up in there because you have something different about you.
Yeah, Roger's a very unique case, I think.
Yeah.
He's interesting. I mean, he is
man.
like, he's such a soft, spoken, polite gentleman.
Yeah.
But the guy's escaped prison like 8 times.
Yeah, he's been in Mexican jail getting tortured
It's
almost to death.
insane,
It's fucking
dude.
wild.
Unbelievable. So in your early years, how did you get into drug trafficking?
Well, I started out at drug dealing, right? Just like from the bottom, like everybody. Pretty much everybody, unless you're like, you know, the son of a Mexican kingpin and you kind of just get handed it down to you. In America, everybody starts just with hand-to-hand sales. So, you know, it was the early 2000s, and it was just kind of the culture in the Northwest and in California on the West Coast. That was where like the revolution happened, where, you know, in the 90s, weed started to be grown en masse in Northern California, Southern Oregon. And it kind of started to replace the Mexican marijuana that dominated the U.S. market up until then, right? So we were on the precipice of that. So weed was abundant, it was cheap, and it was just a way for high school kids to make money. It was like, I describe the green rush of that era of the early 2000s as like the you know, the crack boom of the 80s for, you know, black people in the ghetto. Like everybody was involved with it somehow. I knew multiple people that, you know, went away for selling the shit. So that's just kind of how it started. I wanted to smoke weed for free, and I was fascinated with it, to be honest with you. I was always like, I think that's the show, The Connect, that I do now. I think that like that is my fascination with it. I've always been fascinated. I would see people, older people, you know, older brothers of people that I went to school with, like making a living from selling pot. I'm like, how do they do this? Like how? I thought you had to be Scarface to make money selling drugs. It's like, how do you get the money to buy? How do you get How do you find people to buy the drugs? How do you find people to sell you the drugs? It was like, it was this fascinating. The underworld was fascinating because like drug dealing, it's like magic. I say that in one of my episodes. They used to call the Colombian cocaine kingpins of the 70s mágicos, magicians. Like, how do you just take this thing and just turn it into money? How does the street bring you back money? It's like the invisible hand. So
yeah.
I was, so I just wanted to see like how far I could go with it. So I was just started off just like buying ounces, you know, dishing them off to my friends, losing money. I lost money for years, or I would make like almost no money. So it was like business. It was having a small business, and it just kept growing very steadily. And we would have setbacks and robberies and police raids and all manner of crazy shit. And yeah, I didn't get rich until, you know, my last 2 years before I got locked up.
And that's when you're getting into cocaine and stuff?
Yeah, but I didn't get rich selling coke. I got rich moving pot.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, the markup was, it's hard to make a lot of money selling coke. It's hard to make a lot of money selling coke.
I thought it was the opposite.
You can make good money selling small amounts of coke, but to get rich selling coke, I mean, think about it. If I could make $1,000 profit per pound, it's feasible. It's easy. Not easy, but it's much easier to sell 20 pounds of weed a week than it is to sell, I don't know, 10 kilos of coke a week, because way more people smoke pot than they use coke, right?
Right.
So
I mean, depending on where you're at, though, right? Like depending on what city you're in or what country.
But I was moving it all over the country.
But you were based in Northern California?
I was based in Oregon. I was based in Portland, Oregon. So I was shipping it to New Jersey, upstate New York.
Oh, you were shipping most of it.
Yeah,
right.
Florida, Oklahoma, Philadelphia, right? So it was Chicago. And this is in the era, this was a very unique era where we could get wholesale weed cheap, and the markup, you know, on the East Coast and the Midwest was insane. So, and we knew that was coming to an end. So that's why we were like, we gotta, because before they start legalizing this shit and prices start to fall, like we gotta make millions now. It felt like how the mob must have felt in the 20s, like the Chicago mob. They were like, they can't keep booze illegal forever. They can't even keep it illegal for a long time. Like, this is insane. Everybody needs to drink.
Yeah.
It's the only way ugly people fuck. It's the only way. It's the only way most people get together and procreate, get through their shitty jobs. We got to get rich now, and that's what they did. So that's kind of how I felt. I was like, this is a very unique historical moment where a guy like me, who's not, I was never part of a drug cartel. I would re-up from multiple sources. Some of them were cartel growers, but I wasn't connected. I wasn't a killer. I never carried a gun usually. And I could just go, I was just a small businessman who could make $1 million a year plus just with this, like, you know, I didn't feel like it was a huge trade, right? 80, 100 pounds a month could make me $1 million.
At how old?
22, 23 years old.
22, making $1 million a year.
Imagine making just 80, 90,000 a month.
Fuck,
just
dude.
clean,
Fuck.
man. You don't know what to do with that kind of money. You don't know where to hide it. You don't know how to act. I mean,
no, that's
just
a crazy
insane.
thing too. When you have that much money at such a young age,
that
fucks you up.
Yeah, totally. It hooked me for life, dude.
What did you do for fun with that kind of money at such a young age?
I would just.
Or were you just working 24/7?
I was working 24/7. Okay. I was working 24/7. I was flying to, but I would go everywhere, right? Like I would go to New York City for the weekend and just be walking around Midtown Manhattan, staying in like, you know, luxury hotels, luxury suites with like, you know, Chinese businessmen, and I was dressed in sweatpants and like a fucking, you know, a backwards hat. And I got 50 grand on me in cash. Like, you know what I mean? It was a superpower.
Yeah.
Just shit like that. You know, I could go to Colombia and whenever I wanted. I could just do anything, go anywhere. That's mainly it. You know, like I was never ostentatious with my money because I always, you know, I saw the future. I'm like, this is a golden goose. Don't fuck this up. Like, I need to stash this money and flip it into something legit after I get out of the game. The problem is I could never get out of the game. It just keeps bringing you back.
Just keeps luring you back.
I'm like, oh, 1 million's good, but 2's got such a nice ring to it.
What were you doing with all the cash?
Like, where was I putting it?
Yeah. Well, what was your plan? Were you like buying real estate?
The plan was to start, because this was like the advent of Amazon really becoming, 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
It was like the advent of like online commerce, so e-commerce. So the plan was to like just start buying shit in cash and then reselling it online and legitimizing it, right? Making a company around it, taking that profit, right? Declaring it, paying tax on it. And that's how you get the money in the system, okay? And then using that laundered money to, buy real estate, buy other cash businesses, etc.
So here's the thing. Like when you buy a house, for example, the easiest example, and you have to fucking when you go to the bank or you go to a mortgage broker, you got to show them your bank account. You got to show them your records. Where does that money come from? How many people are paying you each month?
Right.
Where does that, so how do you justify all these cash deposits?
Well, that's exactly why I'd set up a company, right? And then I was buying goods, sneakers, right? This was the beginning so I would buy, a pair of Nikes, Portland is the Nike headquarters there. So I'd buy some Nike shoes, and then I would just resell them online on eBay to, some guys in Japan for like a, 500% markup. And boom, you take that money's run through your company. So that's legit. That looks like legit money, and you pay taxes on it. So the only sketchy part is, how did you get the money to buy the shoes in the first place?
Yes.
That's the rub, but that's what's the hardest to prove. Also, I feel like I'm giving your
right.
I feel like I'm giving
so what do you do about that?
a lesson on that. Well, there's nothing. There's no foolproof way to launder money.
Okay.
There's no foolproof way to do crime. But that's in theory they could go, if the IRS wanted to look deep enough, they could say, well, how'd you get the money to buy this and this and this? And then you wouldn't really have an answer, but also they don't really have an answer.
Right.
It's why they can never put people they convict of like tax fraud away for too long, because the burden of proof is on the state or the federal government to convict you. So most of that is circumstantial. So that's why I always try to keep the money and the drugs separate, because if you busted me with a bunch of money or I got audited by the IRS, and just like you said, they said, well, how did you get $10,000 to buy, all these like whatever designer purses that you were going to resell? Well, sure, maybe I don't have an answer, but you don't either. And it's your job.
Right.
And if you can't link drugs or illegal activity to that money, well, you're probably just going to give me a fine.
Right.
It's probably what it's going to be.
Right.
Or if it's an egregious amount of money that I haven't declared, then there might be some prison time. But, it's not going to be like they can't make a RICO trial out of that if they can't link illegal activity to that money.
And I guess
business.
I guess the example I made with like loans and mortgages, it doesn't really matter if you're just buying shit with cash. If you're going to somebody and buying their house just with a fucking bunch of cash,
right?
You don't have to worry about any of that.
Right. But how are you going to buy a $300,000 house with cash?
That's you might know that better than I do.
I'm asking you. I'd like to know. I'm in the market.
Well, you tried to buy a house in Colombia.
Cash, but
right?
the scam there was you couldn't even do it in Colombia at this point. Like their money laundering laws, because they've been influenced by the U.S. for so long now, right? So they have relatively strict money laundering laws too. But my plan was, because I wanted to buy a hotel. Because at this time, this was, 2010, Colombia is starting to blow up as like a tourist destination.
So is this like before you actually moved down there?
This is at the same time.
Okay, so this is the first time you went down there.
Exactly. Okay. I would spend a lot of time down there.
Okay.
I would go back and forth.
I have a good friend who lived there for years. He met his wife there. He said it's the best place. Lived in Medellin for like probably 15 years.
Oh wow, dude! He's a straight paisa at that point. That's insane, dude.
Paisano.
I couldn't live there long term. I'm too tall. I stick out too much. I swear to God, that's the reason. I'm way too tall. You're just at 6'6". You're bopping around Colombia. You just I don't know. I just always felt like there just could be a bullet that could just fly out and fucking hit me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I never feel totally, and maybe I just seen too many movies. Maybe I just met too many, you know, gangsters, right? That's probably what it is. But I don't feel, even though people are like, oh, it's so safe, it's Colombian, everything's changed. I'm like, I know for a fact it hasn't. So I was always kind of paranoid. But yeah, I would go down there, and I had this idea to buy a hotel on the coast in Cartagena, and actually this town called Santa Marta, which is it's like an hour or so outside of Cartagena. And this was like the perfect, like getting in early on like a booming like tourist economy. So what I was gonna do was I was going to buy the.
Have you bought hotels and shit before now? Like anywhere?
No,
okay.
No. This was gonna be the first foray into it. But I had some guys who were going to run it for me who I'd met traveling, actually like a couple of Americans who wanted to live there. So I was like, perfect, I'll joint venture, because I don't want to run the shit. You guys run it, live here. You know what I mean? Make sure everything's profitable. So the way we were going to do it was they wanted the guy who was going to help me buy it. He was a money launderer. He wanted to basically, this is how it was set up. The buy price of the hotel was $300,000, and he was going to charge me $100,000 on top of that to do the laundering, to do the washing. He had a contact in the United States, right? He had a Colombian guy who worked with him on the East Coast. So he said, what you're going to do is just bring him cash. You're going to bring him the money, and then I'm going to buy with my own money in Colombia. I'm going to buy this hotel for you. And then once I know that my contact has your dollars in the States, I'm just going to transfer the deed of trust over to you. See what I mean? Super clean that way.
And he was charging you $100,000 just to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say, because I don't think I caught that on your episode. So I was immediately like, why the fuck is this guy doing this for you for nothing? Like I would immediately be so suspicious of that.
Yeah,
but if he's making $100,000, then
yeah, absolutely. This is what this guy does.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just like a very clean way, right? Like if you have, the Colombians have a diaspora in New York, in Queens, and so you just take, you take a foreigner's cash.
What'd you call it?
Diaspora. So they have so they have a big Colombian community in New York and on the East Coast.
Okay.
So a lot of drug traffickers coming over there originally from the 70s, a lot of them stayed. So they have a lot of communication back and forth. They got a lot of criminal activity going in and out of, from Cali, Medellin to Queens,
Okay.
Yeah, they still smuggle drugs from Colombia directly to the States. They just don't do it en masse. Most of it goes through Mexico. I met girls that were mules that would swallow pellets of coke. They braid them into their hair. They make the pellets like dark and they fit them inside of these girls like weaves, and they walk through the airport that way. People wrap
like through Miami.
Or wherever, right? Whatever airport they're flying through.
Okay.
But I heard of a guy that had wrapped his little niece, his little 4-year-old niece, stuffed some cocaine in her teddy bear, wrapped it around her legs and shit. I mean, they're just throwing the book at it.
That's a good idea.
It is a good idea.
Babies. People aren't going to be searching babies
or old people too. They do that with infirm people that are in wheelchairs, right? They build them inside of the wheelchair.
Yeah.
So they're less likely to be searched. But you can't get weight in. It's difficult to scale a business doing stuff like that, because how many kilos can you really fit around a little girl's legs? A couple of them maybe.
I've heard some horror stories about people putting them in pellets and then swallowing them and then busting open.
Oh God, dude, brutal, right?
Fuck, bro.
Brutal way to
Can you
go.
imagine?
The fuck no, dude. It will be great at first. When that shit first hits you, you're like, damn.
Yeah, the first 2 seconds.
Fuck. A little too high. Oh man, yeah. Yeah, Maria Full of Grace. That's the classic movie about that. Have you seen that?
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh, it's a great movie. And it's about, impoverished girls from the campo, from the countryside in Colombia. And they get approached by a guy, right? And they're hard up. One of them just found out she's pregnant. I mean, this is, obviously you're not going to swallow cocaine pellets unless you really are desperate.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just about their experience, you know, swallowing shit and flying into New York. And yeah, it's a dirty, dirty game, man. It's a dirty game.
So when you met this guy who was helping you go to New York and pay the guy in New York the cash, the 300 grand cash, and then he was gonna buy this hotel for you.
Yeah.
What happened when you went and met the guys in New York and gave him the cash?
Well, I never even got around to it because that guy ended up the guy in Colombia, the guy who was laundering my money, ended up getting killed. So we never even went through with it.
Oh my
God. Yeah. How wild is that? So I could have, and that was some totally like separate shit, but I could have, and I tried to call down to figure out what happened. They think that guy, that money launderer, was also either like a DEA agent or he was like working for an opposing cartel, was like playing both sides. Because a lot of these money launderers, they deal with a bunch of different cartels' money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you know, he might have been informing on a different cartel, like playing both sides, like giving up information. So, you know, who knows? But I dodged a huge figurative and literal bullet with that, I think.
And you were banging his wife?
Damn, dude. Damn, dude. Why you had to bring that up, Danny? It wasn't his wife. It was
on your podcast.
It was his fiance, dude.
Oh,
it was his fiance. It's different.
Oh, that's fair game.
The guy was a scumbag. The guy was a real scumbag.
You don't have to justify
He
it.
was and I fuck so good. No, I'm
not judging you.
So his fiance was, you know, all the criminals, it's passed down through the family. So the girl his fiance, the girl I was, you know, running around with, she, you know, her uncles are part of a big, you know, drug trafficking organization down there. You know, it's all very incestuous. So yeah, it was fucking surreal. I was like, I started out as a middle-class kid from Portland, Oregon, selling dime sacks, little fucking gram bags of pot. And now here I am, like, running around with, like, kingpins.
Right.
It was, yeah, dude. You get what you wish for. You really, like, become who you want to be. And I realized even negatively, I'm like, wow, I really, like, in a certain way, I wanted this. And now I had it, and I was like, this is a bad feeling. Yeah. That's when I realized I wasn't a gangster, was like when that happened.
When you talked about getting in the taxi cab and then agreeing to put a blindfold on, I was kind of like thinking, I was like, I think I would have turned around at that point. I don't know if I would have gone.
Yeah, it was inertia. It was inertia. Yeah. It was forward moving energy. Yeah, that was crazy. That I'm actually going back to Colombia next month, and I'm trying to get an interview with some of the people from La Oficina, that organization. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's in a neighborhood called Envigado in Medellin. And it's a pretty nice neighborhood, but we were in a slum part of it. And I didn't know this at the time, but I looked into it further. I'm like, oh, that's where they took me. And that's just standard procedure. Like, Colombians are good business people.
Okay.
Like, they're not, you know, these bloodthirsty, they have no reason to kill a tourist, right? Like, they brought me to a trap house, and they were like, yeah, how much money you got to spend? And I'm like, I could, how much drugs you got to sell me? Right. I got plenty of money. Right. So I wasn't, and I knew that.
You weren't planning on selling drugs, though, when you went down there.
No, right? No. I was just having a good time. I was just having a good time. And I was like, oh, whoa. How much for a kilo of blow? Why not?
How much was it for a kilo?
It was there was two kinds. There was the perico, which is the stepped on kind. And then there was the pure shit. And I think I paid $2,000. Like, I bought the perico, which was a little stepped on.
Oh, perico means it's stepped on?
That's how they refer to it. Yeah.
Okay. So here the Mexicans just call perico Coke.
Yeah,
Coke
exactly. It's that's just a across the board term for Coke. But in Medellin, perico is shit that's like a little cut. So I was like, give me that, and it was $2,000 for a key. That's $2 a gram. 1,000 grams for $2,000.
I bet it was 10 times better than anything you'll find anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, give me that, because I had sold Coke before, and I'm like, I don't want shit that's gonna, like, I want shit that's that's not gonna keep people up like it's meth. You know what I mean? Like, I want shit that's gonna really like give people like a smooth landing. So I was like, yeah, give me that. You know? Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious, dude. That's hilarious.
Wild, bro. Yeah.
So how are the dealers there in Colombia different from in Mexico?
Great question. Well, they're much more customer service oriented. I'll tell you that much. Colombians are great business people, and they're very friendly people. And they really, unlike Mexicans who, by the way, I love Mexico and I love Mexicans. They don't give a fuck about Americans, gringos. There's this like, it's almost an animosity. It's almost an animosity because, you know, with so many different ways over the last 100, 150 years, since really the history of the state of Mexico, America's been more or less fucking them, you know, from how we stole their land, Texas to, you know, the free trade agreements that fuck the farmers. Right. There's some things. There's some things that the U.S. has done to Mexico, and they just are very prideful people. They remember. They don't forget. So
Operation, what was that? Operation Fast and the Furious. Familiar with
right. Yeah, under Obama. Right.
Under Obama. Yeah.
But that just scratches the surface, dude. That's happening.
That's killed like those guns killed like thousands. Of Mexicans.
Tens of thousands of people for sure.
Insane.
For sure. Well, dude, you know what's so crazy? When we were down there filming 2 weeks ago in Sinaloa.
Was that when I talked to you on the phone?
Oh, maybe.
With Roger?
Yes, that's right. We were in Sinaloa.
You said you were like in a graveyard or something.
We were on our way to a narco graveyard.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And we were not supposed to be there, by the way. They were like, this is how wild Sinaloa is. Culiacan, Sinaloa is like how Cali, Colombia was in the 90s in the way that the cartel has eyes on everybody.
Right.
Like as soon as we got off the plane, our escort, our guide was like, yeah, they know you're here. They have people working at the airport. They have people working at the rental car company. They have people working at the hotel where we're staying, Hotel Lucerna, right? So every time you leave, probably what somebody does is they just pick the phone up and they just give whoever the, you know, that area manager is a call, be like, the gringos are on the move. Right. So we were not supposed to go and film at this graveyard because it's supposed to be like it's really off limits because it's a narco graveyard. It's where, you know, the big drug cartel kingpins that get killed or, you know, whatever bosses or, you know.
Yeah, they celebrate that. Like the dead are like a very celebratory thing in Mexico and Mexican culture.
Absolutely. But we weren't supposed to go there. Especially not without a Mexican escort with us.
Right.
And so we were like, well, we're definitely going to go there still. And so we went there, filmed, and as soon as we got back, our guy, Luis, who's been on this podcast, Luis Chapo.
Oh, you were with Luis?
I was with Luis from Vice
way.
News, yes. Luis was like, yeah, man, they knew you went to that graveyard.
Dude,
I was like, that gave me fucking chills. They're like, yeah, they know you went there. It's okay, but they knew you went there. I was
my God.
I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, bro. They got so they called the Cali cartel the KGB cartel because they spied on their own people like the Soviet KGB would spy on citizens like under communist Russia. That's how it is in Culiacan, right? So that shit's nuts. I don't know how I got on that subject. Oh, yes, so Mexicans. But basically, the difference between the Colombian dealers is that they're actively trying to sell tourists high-quality coke, high-quality drugs.
Okay.
Because they like the tourist dollars. They want you to come back.
Right.
Whereas in Mexico, that's not the case. They just, because it's so firmly controlled by just a couple of cartels now that they sell you. If you go to Puerto Vallarta, you can't find good coke because it's stepped on because they're like, this is for the tourists. We keep the good shit for ourselves.
No way.
Yeah, that's the difference. But Colombians are like, yeah, come on, we want you to, because we know if we sell you the best shit, you're gonna come back and you're gonna tell your friends in Australia and they're gonna come. You know.
Yeah, but aren't the tourist areas like Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Cabo, those are like all run by cartel or all cartel owned like areas, right?
Like the hotels and the resorts, they all have an interest in them for sure. They all, you know, for sure, either maybe it's not a direct interest, but it's like how the mob used to have, you know, give loans out to casino owners in Vegas, right? That's kind of how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, the way the culture thinks of Americans in Mexico versus the way they think about Americans in Colombia. It's got to be so different. And that's got to play a huge part in that.
Totally, because Colombians don't, Americans are new to Colombia, and they're new to places like Peru relatively, right? So it's kind of like, we're kind of sexy to them, or we're kind of cool to them. Mexicans are so familiar with, they just know what it is. So we would ask, Mexicans about, how do you feel about like fentanyl killing off Americans? They were like, well, you guys asked for it.
Right.
I'm like, well, Chapo we did ask for it, but he kind of started the thing that made everybody start asking for it. They invented the fentanyl market basically back in 2016. So, but that's kind of how they see us. I would ask people, what do you think of Americans?
Didn't the Chinese give them that? Didn't they introduce them to that?
I don't know if they introduced them. That would be a question for Luis, but they're the ones who sell them the precursor chemicals for sure.
Right. And the chemists that taught them how to use.
Right. Perhaps. Yeah. Could have, dude. I mean, we can link this all. We can go back to China, and they haven't forgotten the Opium Wars.
Exactly.
From the 1830s and 1850s.
Right.
So when Biden goes over there.
That was mainly the British, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you lump it in with you lump it in with America because, Teddy Roosevelt's grandfather was an American. That's how he got rich, was participating in the Opium Wars. So so they haven't forgotten either. So it's coming back to roost, but and Mexicans, I asked this one guy, he was a bodyguard for El Mayo Zambada. He was like,
oh, is that who you talked to when you were down there?
That was one of the groups we talked to. Yeah, we talked to several different, families. Or
How
clans.
did you get in contact with the bodyguards of El Mayo Zambada?
Yeah, Luis
put you in touch with those people?
Luis had a guy on the ground. I'll shout him out. His name's El Enfermo, and he's a trap rapper. He's like a trapteño, they call it. Does
he have an Instagram?
It's yes, of course. It's like trap music. It's like Mexican trap music. It's dope. He's really fucking good. Yeah. So he would bring us around, and he met some of these guys. Yeah. It was fucking cool. They didn't let us film him on camera though. That's what you got to have money. That's how that works down there. If you have enough money, you can get these guys to put masks on and carry their guns around and just do an interview with you. But if you don't have the coin, it's pretty difficult because they're like, why? I don't need to. What, for your stupid YouTube show? Like, I don't need to be on camera. Right. What does this do for me?
Right.
Unless they have a YouTube channel.
Was Luis right? Was Luis actually with you, or was he just like setting this all up on the phone?
No, he was with us.
Oh no, shit, bro.
Yeah, we were down there filming. He was down there documenting how the Sinaloan cartel has moved in on like the legal weed market, more or less. Like, weed's about to become legal down there, so they've opened all these dispensaries. I feel like I'm stealing Luis's scoop right now. What they've done is opened up dispensaries all throughout Culiacan, which is the capital of Sinaloa.
No way.
And so it looks like LA. There's dispensaries everywhere. You walk in and it's like different strains. You got pre-rolls, you got edibles. I mean, it looks legal. Of course it's not.
And they're all cartel owned.
All cartel owned. The cartels own the grows, right? They're growing a bunch of indoor bud throughout the city and in the mountains. They still get outdoor weed too. And so it's vertically integrated. They control the grows. They control all of the dispensaries, and they get independent operators to do everything. But that's fascinating because that's how they've adjusted to losing profits when weed became legal in the States. They lost a big export market. So this is kind of what they've done to make some of their money back.
That's fucking wild.
Wild.
So when you were talking to the bodyguards of El Mayo, first of all, people that don't know who El Mayo is, he's like the number one.
He's the boss of the boss. He's the old man. He's the guy that's never been caught. He's the only person.
He's the guy, like one of the two guys who started the Sinaloa cartel, right?
He actually didn't start it. He was there's not a lot of history on him because he's so secretive. The guys who started it are all the guys from the original. If you go watch Narcos Mexico, it was Angel Feliz Gallardo, it was Rafael Caro Quintero, and the other dude, can't remember his fucking name, Fonseca maybe. But he was working for them, just like Chapo didn't start the cartel. He was working for the Guadalajara cartel that later became the Sinaloa cartel. So maybe he was one of the founders. Fuck, I don't know. But he's one of the originals, and the only guy who's never been caught. And he's the most wanted drug trafficker on earth.
I wonder if he really is wanted, or if
right,
he is
totally, dude, or if he's got an agreement.
Right,
he's got an agreement because you know that's how a lot of these guys, according to Luis, that's how a lot of these dudes survive so long. Is they cut deals with either the DEA or the CIA, or the Mexican government or both. And Chapo gave up information, right? All of these guys have given up info on their rivals in the past. So who knows what is keeping him out of prison? But I'll tell you what, he's got a huge security apparatus. That's for sure.
What did his security have to say?
Well, first of all, the guy's got 8 different layers of security around him. He lives in the mountains. Owns ranches all over Sinaloa, right? But when we went to visit his number 1 security team. There's 7 different security layers that we passed through on our way to meet them. So, and that means just guys who are posted up wherever he's at, and it's like a circumference, right? It's like that you just keep going out and out and out, and these different security layers make a ring around him, like a fucking military. It's not like a military. These guys are a military, and in Culiacan, they are the law. They are the military. So every time if you're driving along like the highway out of the city, people are on radios like, yep, these guys are moving towards the boss, right? So, but his main guys, the guys we talked to, they're like fucking 25-year-old kids. It's crazy. It was wild. Like you think they'd be like, have baklavas on and big, you think they'd be like these tough like ex-Marine guys. They're not. They're just dudes that probably have parents or uncles in the cartel, and they just got these jobs guarding him. And it was very weird. It was like these are like normal dudes. The guys got acne. A few of them have braces on, right? Smoking weed, watching Instagram videos.
Yeah, that's
it's not what you think. It's like it's not what you think at all.
It's very easy for that. Well, I mean, think of how easy it is for them to recruit kids to the cartels. When you're a young kid and you're an idiot, you're going to see all the big flashy shit. You're going to want to see the money, and then you're going to gravitate towards that. There's probably not a lot of older people, because I'm sure the life expectancy inside the cartel is not that high.
Yeah, it's either not that high, or you move up to doing something more administrative. Because I'm not sure how many people are actually dying in the stronghold anymore. If you're a soldier and you're going off to like a different state to fight like the Nuevo Jalisco cartel, which is like the rival down there, yes, your life expectancy is pretty low. But I think within the city and the area of Sinaloa itself, it was actually pretty safe, because the cartels got such a stranglehold. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, big time. I just think the kids, nobody wants to be like sitting around. It's boring. When you're guarding this old man in the mountains, it's fucking boring. You just sit around. Probably nothing's going to happen, because there's so many other different security teams that are going to let you know if like the Marines are on their way. Like once the fucking military makes it past the first couple of layers of security, if they really were dumb enough to pull a raid, that old man, they would have that guy on the move so fast. And plus they won't ever do that, because I asked him that. I'm like, well, what if the fucking military does rush right now? And they were like, well, the same thing will happen, even worse than when they tried to arrest Ovidio, Chapo's son. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Back in 2019?
They
tried to arrest him
is crazy.
and they burnt that place to the ground, dude. We were staying right by there.
Bro, the video of them like pulling up on that house and pulling him out of the house is so crazy.
Yeah.
Because he's so fucking calm.
Yeah.
He's like,
exactly.
He's like, whatever. He's like, it's okay. Let me get on my phone. Let me make a call.
That's right. That's what they do. They
like,
say they're panicking. The military, like whoever, the sergeant or the lieutenant, he's handing him the phone and he's like, call them off. Because they're every little clan from the mountains descended on to Culiacan and just started going to war. It like that. And the guy who ordered that was Mayo Zambada.
Really?
Yep. He was the guy that said, do not let them take him. So you imagine what would happen if they tried to arrest Mayo? I mean, it would look like Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So that kind of threat of violence is so ingrained in the culture that you don't really have to worry about much when you're in the inner circle of the security apparatus inside the cartel. You know what I mean?
Pardon this brief interruption, but I want to take a minute to talk about this incredible supplement that I've been using for over a year now after it was recommended to me by nutritional scientist Dr. Dominic D'Agostino on this podcast. I take Dom's advice when it comes to anything related to nutrition, diet, and longevity, because as we get older, these things become more and more important. That is why I started using Verso. Verso is a company that is dedicated to translating scientific breakthroughs into products that hold the potential to increase longevity. I take Cell Being, this one right here, which contains nicotinamide mononucleotide or NMN-based supplement, paired with naturally derived micronized trans resveratrol and TMG. These two chemicals are actually precursors to what's called nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is commonly known as NAD. And NAD is essentially the precursor to energy, cell repair, and longevity. If you've ever tried fasting or even intermittent fasting and you've gotten that feeling of super high energy or mental clarity, it's because your body is activating these genes called sirtuins, which are actually longevity genes. The downside is as we age, NAD declines. When I found out I could naturally increase my body's activation of sirtuins and naturally activate my body's production of NAD, I was sold. And it is so much more affordable than doing NAD IV drips. Head on over to ver.so and use the coupon code CONCRETE at checkout to save 15% on your entire order. That's KONCRETE at checkout and get 15% off your entire order, or you can just go to ver.so/KONCRETE. It's linked below. Back to the show. It's so fucking crazy to think about. I've asked this question to so many people, and it's always like a laugh for people when I ask them this, but I'm like, could you imagine if the U.S., I don't even know if they have motive to do it or not. Like, there's so many conspiracies about how the U.S. is like involved in the cartels. And like, there's that documentary that I forget the name of it right now, but it's the documentary basically about the DEA agent who was murdered by the CIA agent. Yes. Okay. Felice Rodriguez.
Not Felice Rodriguez. His name is, Come on. I know the name. Kiki Camarena. Exactly.
He was the DEA agent.
That's right.
Felix Rodriguez was the CIA
agent.
Who tortured him.
The Cuban guy, right?
Yes.
So he was a CIA asset, right? We got to remember that. The CIA doesn't have that many people
I thought
working.
He was a legit officer of the CIA because he was working on the Contra, like with the Contras.
Who knows, right? Because
look up Felix Rodriguez. We got to figure out.
Yeah. Who knows? Because it's very easy. It's all about deniability, right? Like this guy obviously wasn't like, educated in America and he didn't apply for a job at the CIA. They recruited him because he was a Cuban exile, who could help fight communism, right? This is post-Castro. This is when, that dude right there. Holy
Felix,
shit.
Cuban-American, former Central Intelligence
paramilitary operations officer. Oh, wow. So maybe he was like on the payroll. Well, he's definitely on the payroll. Maybe he was a card-carrying member.
Right. He was involved in the Bay of Pigs
invasion. Oh, so this guy goes back to Kennedy, dude.
Yeah.
This is crazy. As his ties to
Keep
George
going
W.
down.
Bush.
Early life. Go to his early life. He came from the wealthy family in native Cuba. Blah 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 blah. Attended school in Pennsylvania. Dropped out. Joined the Anti-Communist League in the Caribbean. When did he join? Okay, in September 1960, he joined a group of Cuban exiles in Guatemala, supported by the CIA to receive military training.
So that's probably when he got recruited, because the CIA organized a bunch of Cuban exiles to pull the Bay of Pigs invasion off. So that's probably when they recruited him. It was like 1960.
No,
because I think
Keep
Bay
going.
of Pigs was 61.
Okay, in 1967, the CIA again recruited Rodriguez to train and head a team to hunt down Che Guevara.
Oh, wow.
Holy
was
fuck.
Attempting to throw. So he was part of because Guevara got killed in Bolivia. So he was part of that. Oh, so this guy is deep in it.
Deep, bro.
Holy shit. So he was the one in the house in Guadalajara when Kiki Camarena, the DEA agent, was getting tortured to death.
Yep.
That documentary, can we pull up the name of that? Everybody who's interested in this subject needs to watch this.
It is the best documentary on this subject.
Because and then if you watch Narcos, you see that they leave that part out.
Yeah.
If you watch Narcos Mexico on Netflix,
yes,
they talk about that whole thing, except the fact that the guy Jaime, who was the white guy, Jamie, he was leading in the show. He was like the head of the DEA office down there.
Right.
He actually, in real life, according to the documentary, I think he like stonewalled the investigation.
Yes.
To make sure it couldn't go any further.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was, oh, dude, my fucking nipples are hard. I got chills down my spine right now. It's
search
crazy.
Kiki Camarena. No. You got to search Kiki Camarena documentary.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon.
Yes,
yeah,
it's on
Amazon. But it's incredible. Yes, it
is sad as fuck.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
He was going on his way to lunch to have lunch with his wife, and gets kidnapped right out front of the DEA office.
Yep. And that happened during the Cold War all the fucking time. So many times. It's like, supposedly trying to do the right thing or trying to fight drugs. It's been the CIA actually helping the criminals. They didn't. It's not just with Rick Ross and the Nicaraguans and cocaine, and it was with the heroin kingpins in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Right. During the Vietnam War, they were allowing all of this heroin trafficking to go on because
The Last Narc.
That's
it.
There's a docuseries about the 1985 death of DEA agent Kiki Camarena. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Amazing fucking documentary.
Yeah, but that guy Felix, he's out free.
I think he lives in Miami right now.
Yeah.
Which is wild. And I wonder why they left that out of Narcos.
It's a little too deep because I think the powers that be were like, this is a little too wild.
I wonder what the pressure was on that to leave that part out, because that is like one of the most intriguing parts of the whole story.
I think it's self-censorship because we all know about, I think it is. I don't think it's the CIA coming down to the offices and Netflix in Hollywood. And it's not that, because we all know about the Rick Ross story now, right? They've made movies about that. We all know that the CIA was, assisting Nicaraguan drug traffickers who were supplying Ricky Ross, Freeway Rick, right? We all know that. So we know that the CIA is this shadowy, fucked up organization. So I don't think it's, I think it's just a little too much. It's almost unbelievable. So I think maybe the showrunners were like, this is just, we want to make a Hollywood ending, and this is not a neat ending.
It's why I wonder what I was getting to originally is people like El Mayo, like what really are his threats other than rival cartels? Like I don't think,
which are barely a threat.
And is the Mexican government is not a threat, right? Like they're bought and paid for by the cartel. Like the Mexican government is essentially a branch of the cartel.
Yeah. From what I gathered, and of course, like I'm, a novice at this, but from speaking to, guys like Luis and reading, and there's like a tacit agreement between, the cartel kingpins and the Mexican government. When the Mexican government feels pressure, especially from the U.S., they will tell the kingpins, like, somebody's got to go. So the most powerful, yes, they're an arm of the cartel, but really the cartel is an arm of the government. That's how I see it. Because the most powerful, gang really is the high political class that's, been around for generations in Mexico.
Right.
That's the only reason that the cartel could exist as it does. So I think it goes government cartel, not the other way around.
Right, and then that's probably why we got El Chapo. It probably just became a
totally.
He
was a PR nightmare. It was a PR nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah, it was this bad publicity. And I might be speaking out of pocket. I wish Luis was here because this is his scoop, but he's not. I am. So this is my clickbait. Sorry, Luis. And I mean, we all know this. Mayo gave up Chapo.
He had to have, right?
We know he did. It was his son. So his son, one of Mayo's many children, but the son that was organizing cocaine transport through Mexico City. This is back, can't remember, mid-2000s. He basically gets kidnapped by the DEA. They come to him and they say, we want to have a meet. We want to discuss a deal with you. He meets with them. They fucking kidnap him. They arrest him, but that's kidnapping, right? You're American agents on foreign soil. They take him back to Chicago, to the States, and they say, look, you're never going to see the light of day again. Around this time, Chapo is making a lot of bad publicity for Sinaloa, right? And Mayo never liked that.
He was just like he was like a butcher, school. Right? El Chapo was mainly like he grew up being a butcher, like from very young. He was just a killer. I'm
not sure. I'm sure he dropped a lot of bodies. He was a farmer. He tended to poppy fields, right? But you know, as these guys get more famous, they fall in love with the clout, you know? So yeah, he was making a lot of bad publicity for the Sinaloa cartel. And he was really a glorified manager too, I want to point out. Like they have him on a wiretap talking to the Flores brothers, who were Sinaloa's main heroin distributor through Chicago.
Right.
And he's discussing a heroin deal with them.
I heard that audio.
Like, why would a kingpin ever be talking on the phone about a deal? That's what a manager does. So Chapo he was a glorified general manager,
right?
You know,
right.
So when Mayo's son gets popped, we've all got all of this going on, right? Mayo is he's on a recorded jail call. His son calls him from jail, and basically Mayo goes, "You do what you got to do," and so that was basically him telling his son, "You can go ahead and give up info on Chapo," and that's exactly what he did. So. And that got him out of a life sentence. So they gave Mayo's son 15 years, but the info that he gave up on Chapo led to his final arrest. Okay?
Wow.
So flash forward to 2019, Chapo's son, Ovidio, El Raton they call him, gets raided by the military in Culiacan, a block from where we were just staying. And Mayo, out of whatever sense of guilt for having been responsible for getting his dad incarcerated in the United States forever, says, you're not taking his son.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bro.
Wild. And so they come down and they stop the military from taking his son. So it's dude, the Mexican telenovelas, the soap operas, it's lived out in real life. And these stories, I mean, there's a million of these stories.
So many of them.
Yeah.
So many of them, dude. It's
one of Chapo's brothers was shot to death in prison.
I didn't even know this.
Yeah, he was in a maximum security prison. He was shot to death. I don't know exactly, but it's just like that kind of shit, right? It's they live a very gaucho, machismo, dramatic lifestyle. It's like played out in real life.
Yeah,
that's where they get these stories from. Even though they seem corny to us, like you watch these like, you know, these like I call them B movies, or you know, these kind of like low budget shows on Netflix, right? But they're taking these stories from real life.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing about the cartels is how much fucking money they make by trafficking people across the U.S. border.
Yeah, that's big too. That's big too.
Like $8,000 a head.
Yeah, and that's way better business because, you know, like there's no way those people are getting intercepted like coming from Colombia. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's actually way better. I'd much rather smuggle people.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And you always need people. Like there's always like it's a never ending supply of people that want to get across. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. Seems like a better gig.
Yeah, I had Ed Calderon in here a couple weeks ago, and he was basically talking about how the cartels loved Trump because he put on that whole border thing, that whole wall thing.
They love that. And that makes the price go up.
Yes.
That makes the price go up.
Exactly.
I'm like, dude, the cartels love the Republicans. Cartels are fiscal and social Republicans.
They really are.
You know?
That's so wild, man.
Yeah. Okay, so check this out. You talk about money. And this is in the episode that drops this Thursday. Okay. Connect. Check it out on YouTube. You've heard of YouTube. Our guy, our trap rapper, the guy, our liaison.
What was his name again?
El Enfermo.
El Enfermo.
Yeah. Yeah. We may have to bleep that out. I'm considering bleeping it out because what I'm about to say.
Oh, really?
What I'm about to say, I don't know. I don't know if it can get him in that much trouble. I think it's exaggerated a little bit. But anyways, he brought us to a little section, like a 3 or 4 block section in the like the downtown area of Culiacan, and we're driving by, and he points out all of these little stands. They're like almost like little outdoor, they're just little stands. They could be fucking lemonade stands, but they're money exchange places. So you can exchange dollars for pesos there. And what do you think is happening there? A lot of dollars, a lot of dirty narco dollars getting exchanged for pesos. He goes, yeah, they say they wash about $7 million a day just in this little 4-block area. $7 million a day.
A day.
That's $1.5 billion just in this one little neighborhood.
Oh my God.
In this one little city. $7 million. And he's like, yeah, they own they own the machines too. So they're laundering money at their own businesses.
That's insane.
Yeah, so there's a lot of money in drugs still. They are to Medellin. Cocaine is to Medellin what all drugs are to Sinaloa, and specifically Culiacan. Like I say that, it's like Silicon Valley of drug trafficking. They're on the cutting edge of everything, and it's so ingrained in the culture.
Now I think Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru are the #1 countries that are actually making coke, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a guy in here 2 days ago who lives in the Amazon rainforest.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
So he was telling me that there's literal factories in the like pop-up shops in the jungle where they're making this shit.
Yeah.
And he says that like under the Amazon, under like the canopies of the trees, they will cut out like tunnels where planes can fly down and land underneath the forest.
Wow.
Just to reload their fucking planes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's insane. Yeah. Everybody's getting in on it.
It is wild.
Everybody's getting it. Like it's totally changed. Everybody is kind of an independent operator now. You know, the cartels exist, but you know, I don't know how exactly it works in Colombia, but I know in with Sinaloa in Mexico, the cartel is now just an armed paramilitary group that guards drugs coming in from whoever basically wants to import them. Isn't that wild? So there's no more salary. There's no more payroll. It all got flattened. After Chapo fell, the entire organization restructured. So nobody's on payroll anymore. Everything used to be structured like a company, like a corporation, right? You know, the bodyguards, the people, you know, cooking the meth, all the way up to like the people that smuggled it across the border. Everybody was just paid a salary. Now that's all completely changed. Everything is independent. So it's just groups, families of different drug traffickers smuggling drugs, cooking drugs, growing drugs. Nobody tells them what to buy, who to sell it to, how much to pay for it, how much they can earn, where to sell it.
Interesting.
What they do, the only thing they have to do is pay protection money to the cartels because they're the ones who have the drug routes. The drug routes to America. And they're also the ones who pay off the cops, the military, politicians, et cetera. So it's a way different time. And it probably operates much that way in South America too, I would imagine, right? Because there's just too much technology now. You can't have a Pablo Escobar style Medellin cartel anymore. It's too easy to take something like that down. But you cannot take down the Sinaloa cartel. You just can't.
Too compartmentalized.
Exactly.
Now, you said something about Australia being the biggest market.
Oh, the best place to sell drugs is 1,000% Australia. And dude, a gram of Coke is like $400 there.
That's
1 gram of
wild,
Coke.
Dude.
I bought Coke for $2 a gram in Medellin. $2 a gram at 1,000 grams a shot. So imagine you get 2 of those to Australia, 2 keys to Australia, and just sell it out gram for gram. You got a fucking house on Sydney Harbor.
That is
what are you doing, dude?
Insane,
it's mind blowing. Yeah.
And it's obviously because it's so far away and it's so hard to get to. But I mean, you're paying all these expenses. So that's all cost to get there. So how does that equate to more profit?
Because
you know what I mean? Like if it costs you that much to get it there, like
but it's not that much. It's you deal in volume, right? That's how you make money in the drug trade. You deal in volume, and you just buy the most for the cheapest, and you sell it for the highest.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of like in where you visited in Colombia? Are there a lot of Australians and Europeans?
Yeah,
down
definitely,
there?
definitely. There's a lot of Europeans, a lot of Canadians, a lot of Australians, a lot of Black Americans are in Colombia now, which is crazy, right? And I was like, why is that? And I was like, oh, because they like a nice, you know, Black guys like a nice fat ass. We all know this.
Oh,
There's nothing wrong with
yeah.
that. And you'll find a nice fat ass in Colombia. So, but yeah, but they don't do coke as much as like, the people like the tourists that live there. I mean, bro, I sold a kilo just out in grams and 8 balls to, it took me less than a week to get 1,000 grams off just to the tourists staying in these hostels where I was staying. I mean, it was insane. These motherfuckers.
And the majority of them are European, right?
Yes, and Australian, and they're so used to paying so much for coke that they go there and they just lose their fucking mind. They were like, what? What? $20 for a gram?
It sounds like a fucking heaven on earth down there.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not. I've
heard a lot about like the women. They're like the women are like no other.
Yeah, the women are really beautiful.
Very beautiful, very outgoing, love to party, love to have fun. They're not like women here.
Yeah, right. Well, Florida's got some pretty great women, dude. Florida
we got a lot of prostitutes.
Oh yeah, but none of those in Colombia. Yeah,
prostitutes are probably on a whole nother level in Colombia.
Yeah,
here you got lot lizards.
Yeah, so a lot lizards. Yeah, Colombia's. I don't know. I'm jaded by it. Everybody loves going there. I'm like, this place is like gross now because it's become like Cancun of South America. It's become like, you know, you name it.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's gross. Like you see these like retarded. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we're in fucking Florida.
We're in Florida, dude.
Get out your fucking gun. Let's play some Russian roulette before we go into the ad read. Yeah, dude, but you just see these like brain dead fucking junkie, because that's what they are, junkie tourists who are like, you know, in the tourist sections, like the red light districts, just, you know, like stumbling down the street, like looking for fucking coke and whores. It's just kind of a bad look. You know what I mean? It's just kind of, I miss the days when it was just a little more dangerous because people kind of acted right, you know?
Yeah.
But what's starting to happen is these people are getting robbed and killed. And I'm not justifying it, but I'm saying these people that act out of pocket like that, these people that go there just like looking for hookers, like they're just so obviously like
you're saying now
there
they get
for
robbed and
yes,
killed.
yes. Like I even had a buddy. He met some girls on Tinder down there, and you know he went out and met them at a bar and was drinking with them. And he's like, "Man, I feel fucked up." And they go back to his place and he passes out, and they robbed him for all his shit. They drugged him.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. That's like a business. That's a straight up like industry now, is drugging and robbing tourists in Medellin. They use that thing. Vice News did a piece on it years ago. Scopolamine, it's called. And that's the devil's breath. And that's like they take it out of a piece of flower that grows indigenous down there. It's you take like just a little, like some seeds out of the middle of this flower, and you can just like blow it on somebody or make it into powder and put it into somebody's drink, and it will make the person completely black out.
Really?
But they'll have all of their motor skills. They'll have all full physical mobility. So people will get drugged with scopolamine, and they will be walking around, and I could say, "Hey, take me up to your apartment and give me your TV and all your money and all your furniture," and you'll just do it.
Really?
Yeah, and then you'll wake up the next day, you won't have anything in your apartment. You're like, "What the fuck happened?"
What is this shit called again?
Scopolamine.
Scopolamine.
Can we look that up?
Yeah, we gotta look that up, Austin.
But it
I gotta get my hands on this.
Yeah, right? Yeah, dude, fucking it sounds rad. You just black the fuck out. So it would be like a Quaalude. It would be like, you know,
do a podcast on some scopolamine.
Yeah, like it would be like how Quaaludes were back in the day. You would have full physical function, but you black out. Yeah.
Pull up the
also known as the
article.
devil's breath. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, hyoscin, or the devil's breath. Yeah, naturally or synthetically produced tropane alkaloid and anticholinergic drug that is formerly used as a medication for treating motions. Oh, it's for treating motion sickness and post-operative nausea. Huh.
Yeah.
When used by injection, effects begin about 20 minutes and last for up to 8 hours. May be also used orally or with a transdermal patch.
Yeah, so my buddy thinks he got maybe drugged with this.
Huh.
And but yeah, it's wild. Like, just look up scopolamine Colombia and you'll hear all of these, horror stories about, guys that can't get laid in their own country going there. And this is kind of what happens. But I don't want to shit on it. I mean, there's tons of great things about it. But yeah, drugs are they're a corrupting influence on society.
Well, it's only because they're illegal, though, right? I mean, if drugs were illegal, it wouldn't be nearly as bad as it is.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. But it depends how you do it. Because in America, we tried to make drugs legal in San Francisco and Portland and Seattle and all of these places that are decriminalized, and it's made things like 5 times as bad. So if you're going to make...
Really?
Yeah, dude, it's fucked up. The Tenderloin in San Francisco, dude, oh my God, they ruined that city because you let people basically... There's no consequences for getting caught with drugs. People are openly fucking shooting up and, having fentanyl overdoses and, all this crazy shit. And it fucks up ordinary people's lives, right?
Yeah, but if it was legal, wouldn't that eliminate the fentanyl because it'd have to be regulated?
Right.
Like if you could buy an ounce or a gram of Coke and
from a pharmacy
and know indefinitely that there's no fucking fentanyl in it.
Right. I guess you're right. I guess the government would have to oversee it and basically make it, right? And the U.S. just doesn't do that kind of shit well. We don't do medical, because what that is like a public health revolutionary thing. The U.S. doesn't do that well. We make money.
Exactly.
That's all we do. So you have to really it has to be paired with law enforcement and mental health treatment and housing and all this shit that we just don't fucking do good.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to, I just learned, we thought the cartels were going to go out of business when weed became legal in the U.S. And look at it, it's just making them stronger. Just made Sinaloa stronger. So it's how you do it.
Right.
And I don't think we're far behind Europe in the way that they treat drug addiction,
Do you think the whole scare about Coke intentionally being laced with fentanyl is real?
I'm glad you brought that up. We cover it in this week's episode.
Oh, really?
Yes. Dude, can I just break this?
Yes.
Nobody's talking about this on the internet.
Yeah. Okay? I've talked about it multiple times in this podcast because it doesn't fucking make sense to me.
Oh, well, fuck me. But this response. The cartels are almost without a doubt not spiking the blow, their cocaine, with fentanyl. In fact, they're taking measures now to prevent people from using cocaine that's laced with fentanyl. All right? Do you remember when I told you earlier that the drug cartels have become completely decentralized? When they move drugs, they move them to the border, right, with the U.S., and usually sell them wholesale to Americans or, Mexican Americans, Latino Americans, who then smuggle them across the border. After that, the cartel's out of it. They're like, there's no more cartel members that come to the States, basically, that and that sell drugs for their bosses back home. They're selling it wholesale and then retreating into the safety of Mexico. So the people that are spiking the Coke with fentanyl are stupid dealers in the U.S. that are trying to stretch the brick. Trying to stretch the Coke.
But are they trying to stretch the Coke with fentanyl? Because if I'm a Coke dealer, I want people to keep buying my Coke,
not dying from using my product.
So is it? Here's what I've kind of assimilated from the whole thing. I've read an article about, I think it might have been a Vice article, where a guy went to every big city across the U.S. and tried the Coke.
Sounds like a Vice article.
Yeah. And basically what he found out was that the cheap dealers who are selling to people on the streets, low level drug dealers. Those drug dealers are also selling shit like heroin.
Yeah.
So they're selling coke and heroin.
Yeah.
The high level drug dealers who are dealing with like rich people or whatever, they're not selling heroin.
Right.
Most likely. Right.
Right.
So the people we know for a fact that they cut heroin with fentanyl.
Right.
Because almost the same effect.
Right.
One's just more stronger and cheaper.
But they is not the cartel. The cartel doesn't.
It's dealers in the U.S.
Yes.
Dealers in the US.
So yes, low level guys buying ounces. They are using fentanyl to stretch coke because, if there's an overdose, this is crazy, but fiends want it more, especially with heroin, but also I think with cocaine a little bit. If there's an OD, whether it results in a death or not, the junkies find out about that and they're like, oh, he's got the bomb shit. I think that's one of the reasons. I think the other reason is a little bit of fentanyl goes a long way. So, and if you've built up a tolerance to it, I think it's a different high. I don't exactly know the mindset behind a dealer that would do that, but we can say for a fact that the cartels are not spiking their wholesale coke with fentanyl, because what we found out when we were down there from Luis is that in order to prevent that, the cartel has started pressing the heroin they make, the fentanyl that they cook. They've started pressing it into pink pills and exporting the pills. So that way, if a dealer is chopping up fentanyl with coke, that coke is going to have a pinkish, reddish hue to it. Okay. So yeah, you guys stay away from that. If you use cocaine and you see that it's got a red hue to it, that means it's got fentanyl in it.
So the cartels are doing us a favor.
Trying to, yeah.
Yeah, because so what I assumed is that the low-level dealers were selling coke on one hand and heroin on the other hand, could be mixing it up on the same table.
There's cross-contamination too, for sure. Yeah, that absolutely happens.
But what you're saying is it would be a case where having fentanyl in coke would make somebody more addicted.
Yes, exactly.
Huh.
Yeah. There's no way, after spending time with these guys, I'm like, they are way too shrewd. They're way too on point. They would never be intentionally killing off, their clientele. They would never be. And in fact, the penalty within the cartel for selling fentanyl in Culiacan is death. No questions asked. There is a mandate from on high. The man himself, he's like, there is
that?
Zambada.
Oh, from Zambada. Okay.
Yeah, and whoever leads, Ovidio, who leads the Chapitos, right? That's the other wing of the Sinaloa cartel.
Yeah.
There is to be no selling of fentanyl in Sinaloa state. That is for export only. So it's like they know how dangerous it is.
Right.
They know how bad it is. They're like, we would never taint a wholesale load of Columbian coke with fentanyl.
Right.
Like, we keep that shit. These markets are different,
Yeah.
So, and I believe it. It makes sense. These guys are smart.
The China thing is really weird, how they have really sunk their teeth into Mexico so much. With the lithium mining, and the fentanyl and all the other things. But they've been balls deep in Mexico for a long fucking time.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And then just keep shipping more and more chemicals, precursor chemicals over there.
It reminds me of the Russia-Ukraine thing right now, because Ukraine is a tug of war between the United States and Russia.
That's right.
And Mexico is in a tug of war between the United States and China.
China, yeah.
But the U.S. doesn't really, the U.S. does a little bit of business in Mexico, I guess.
Yeah.
But China is really fucking sinking their teeth into Mexico.
They're playing Cold War with Mexico.
And it makes me wonder if the U.S. would ever just fucking invade Mexico.
Yeah,
but we're just we don't really need to invade, because we already have so many people in Mexico, like the DEA and the CIA and all these people.
I think Mexico is going to become like China in their manufacturing capabilities. That's what I think. I think Mexico's on the come up. I think
there's a lot of natural resources in Mexico.
Totally. And there's cheap labor, and it might not be as cheap as China, but who gives a fuck? It's going to be better, and it's our southern neighbor. So what China's proven is we cannot depend on them to manufacture our goods, because the next crisis that comes up, that's just more power that they have. They love choking off, products to us. right? That's like
Right.
part of the war that they make,
Yeah.
part of that subtle war that they're always making with the U.S. And they're still locking people down. So it's like you can't depend on them
Right.
to be your main manufacturer of your import goods. So why not make it Mexico?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think it was Apple. I saw an article recently that Apple is like diversifying a huge portion of its manufacturing of the iPhone and the MacBook out of China to, I think, Bangladesh, maybe.
Right.
Somewhere crazy, but they're already starting to diversify away from China.
Yeah. People are getting away from it. They're like,
Yeah.
the cost is not, it's not worth it anymore. Like when you factor in all of that bullshit and the fact that they're going to steal your idea, like if you're an inventor
Right.
and you have a product and you want to go over and manufacture it in China, they're going to take it from you. So it's just not worth it. It's cheaper. You might as well just manufacture it here in the US, you know?
Yeah, China's such a weird thing too. Like I think if you get caught, Apple explores moving some, they're exploring moving some iPad production to India, sources say. When was this published?
It's a bunch of companies doing it.
Oh, this was just published. Yeah, there's a ton of companies doing it. I had this guy on here multiple times who was a former mortgage fraudster, and one time we did like a whole episode about China. He's like a fucking he's a genius. He knows he's an encyclopedia on China, and it's funny when you look into the laws in China and like how many laws are punishable by death.
Yeah.
Fraud, any kind of financial fraud is death.
That's wild. So you run a Ponzi scheme, they're cutting your head off.
Or mortgage fraud, or you fucking
write a bad check.
You white out and change your fucking income on a mortgage application or something.
Wow.
That's death.
Can we look up all of the death punishable things in China?
Yeah, find a list of all of the crimes that are punishable by death in China. It is pretty wild, and
What's so funny is though, like obviously, like the biggest fraudster is the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah,
they can just take all your shit. Like it doesn't matter. You have to. You can't do business in China. Like kind of how you can't do business in Sinaloa without the cartel's blessing. You can't do business in China without the government being involved.
Right.
You have to go to them first. You know.
Betrayal of the country, number one. Can you zoom in on that a little bit? It's kind of small.
Armed rebellion and rioting.
Collaborating with
the enemy and betrayal. I love these words they use. Spying or espionage.
Does that say flooding?
Yes, flooding. What the fuck does that mean?
Explosion. Spreading hazardous. Keep going down.
Spreading hazardous substances.
Hijacking an aircraft. Trafficking in women and children. Robbery.
Rape. Intentional injury. That could be a fight.
These are all things that like you would not be surprised about. This is all things that would
gathering crowds to raid a prison with weapons.
Defying orders. Okay, defying orders in wartime is punishable. Well, think about that. Like it's bad, but we're looking at a list of things that are punishable by death.
Yeah, right.
Punishable by death.
Unreal. That's some old school Soviet shit. Retreaters will be shot.
Google like fraud and drug crimes punishable by death in China.
I think China actually executes like way more people than any other country every year.
They have mobile death squads. They'll come to your house and kill you.
Right. That's very convenient. They got an app for it. It's like Uber Eats.
It's just like Uber Gallows.
Yo, that could be, but it's literally covers almost everything. That could be anything. Like rioting, you could call the people that are protesting against the lockdowns rioters.
Yeah, 100%.
Ooh, I'm terrified. I will never go to China. Not until things change. I'm terrified, dude.
Yeah, bro, it's fucking scary.
Surrender.
So,
yeah.
How old were you and at what point did you get busted and actually go to prison?
I was 24 when I got locked up. I was 24 and I had made my $1 million. You know, I'd done I'd achieved what I'd set out to. And I just got popped. I never got caught with any drugs. Actually, I got caught with a bunch of money. I got caught with money. Yeah. It was the people that were shipping my money back from the East Coast. It got picked up by either like a drug sniffing dog, probably in like a sorting facility, and they put a little tracking device in it, and it brought them to me. Yeah, that's simple, right?
I didn't even know the dogs could sniff money.
Oh, dude, it's like one of the main ways that cops go after drug dealers now is their money. Because I could lose all the drugs in the world. I could just go to my guy, my grower, and be like, hey, I need you to front me 50 pieces, right?
Right.
And he can always do that pretty much. But, dude, if I lose $500,000, that's gone. So these guys were not the brightest. Some of these guys were they got a little loose at the end. They would send me over packages of 30, 40, 50 grand, and it would just reek of fucking weed smoke. It was like they were smoking blunts as they were counting my money up and like blowing it on the money. I'm like, are you doing this on purpose? Do you want me to go to prison? Are you the fucking feds? I would tell them, you gotta wrap my money with the same care that I wrap your dough.
I remember you saying that. You're
Yeah.
like, vacuum seal my cash.
Yeah, you have to. So, but no, the drugs are, think about how drugs are on money all the time. Coke, weed, everything. So those dogs must have hit on it, and it brought them to me. So,
Wow.
yeah. That simple. It wasn't a wiretap. It wasn't all these fucking cartel members that I was dealing with in Colombia or the Sinaloans that I was picking up, massive 100-pound orders at a time from in Northern California. It was something as dumb, as simple as them intercepting a package of money. Yeah. But that's how it goes in the game, dude.
How did it go down? Like, what was that day? Like, did they knock on your door?
No. I went down. I had different locations where I would get my money packages sent to. I would get them either FedExed or UPS'd in, right? The next day, like next day air.
Yeah.
And I went to pick up one of the packages at a PO box where I would receive, it was under a fake name, right? But I picked the package up and I walked out and I got in my car and I see these two Suburbans following me, and I'm like, oh shit, this is it. So I was like, well, I'm definitely not going home now, right? I'm not going back to where I live now. So I fucking hit it. I took them on a little high-speed chase through the neighborhood. I actually got away. And I talk about this on an episode. I talked to my lawyer. I was going like 90 through school zones, right? I talked to my lawyer. He was like, the reason they didn't follow you, because they kind of backed off when they saw that I was like revving it. I had a Dodge Magnum at the time. That was the hot car in 2010. And that thing, it's got a fucking Hemi. That thing bolts, moves.
Yeah.
So that's what the cops drive usually. So I had a better car than the cops. And my lawyer was like, yeah, they didn't give chase because most local pigs, most local cops don't speed through neighborhoods, because if they hit somebody and get killed, that person can sue. They're liable.
Right.
So it's kind of a safety thing. So, if any of you are considering a high-speed chase,
do it through a school zone.
A little pro tip. Yeah, be responsible and do it through a school zone. So I was daytime. School wasn't out yet. So yeah, but then I made it back safely. So I parked the car in a tiny little residential area, and it's dark. It's almost dark now. I make it back to my place. I don't have any bills in my name or anything. I've never sold drugs at my place. I don't think anybody knows my parents didn't even know where I lived. Only one person knew where I lived. Okay. Mm-hmm. One person that I dealt with.
Okay.
He was another drug dealer, but I didn't sell drugs to him.
Okay.
I didn't deal with him at all. He was just an old friend from the neighborhood.
Okay.
And he would come over and we would smoke weed every now and then, catch up. So anyways, I get back to my place and I'm like, nobody knows where I live. I should be fine. I didn't see anything. I get into my house, fucking lock the door, get under my covers. I'm fucking shaking. I'm traumatized. I lay my head back to fucking take a nap, and then I just wake up to just pounding on the fucking door. Police, police, police. So I go down there and I'm like, guys, relax. It's just me. There's no guns in here, right? I'm a fucking rich guy. Like, I'm not selling meth. Like, do you know what I mean? So they run up in there, fucking search the place, find some keys to some safe deposit boxes, find a bunch of cash right there. End of the day, I think they must have confiscated like $750,000, $800,000.
Oh my
yeah.
God. Dude.
So that one hurt. But I kept thinking, how the fuck did they know where I lived? My lawyer looked into it later. I gave him the name of this guy, the only person that had ever been to my house. I'm like, he's a drug dealer. There's no way. I didn't sell drugs to him. There's just no way he was involved. And he goes, I think that guy might be ratting, working for the cops, and they're letting him operate on the streets. Right?
Right.
Yeah. And I looked into it further. I talked to some guys also who knew this kid from the neighborhood, and they were like, yeah, that dude's been caught before, never done a day of jail time. That guy is working for the Portland police. They're letting him sell drugs, and just like the cartel members, just like Mayo fed Chapo to the cops, right? To the fucking feds, Mexican military, this guy had quotas. He would have to feed different guys to, the cops. So to basically to stay out of prison. So,
did they offer you the same deal?
They wanted to get me to snitch right away.
Yeah.
They thought they saw all this money and they were like, oh, you are definitely working with the cartels. There's no question. They were like, give us your suppliers right now. We'll kick you out right now. We won't even put the handcuffs on you.
But what would they do if you're like, oh, okay, my supplier's the fucking in the Medellin or in the fucking
the Sinaloa
cartel? Like, what are they gonna do? They can't do
anything. Well, but remember, I'm buying my pot from Sinaloan cartel members that are operating in the U.S. Yeah, that doesn't really happen anymore because weed's basically legal. They stay in Mexico now. But I was buying from a guy in a little town on the border of Northern California. And they had these huge pot grows up in the forest. They would hike on federal land hours away from everything, and they would run irrigation through it. I mean, only Mexican guys have that kind of work ethic to be able to like find enough sunlight and enough water. And I mean, it's amazing. And they would have like, thousands and thousands of plants every year. And so what the cops wanted to do, they would have been like, dude, we'll give you marked money. Right? You can use the money we just found. We could use your money, and yeah, we'll wire you up. We'll mark the money, and you go start making buys for us. Right? Like that's probably how they would have done it, I imagine.
Yeah.
If I had decided to cooperate, Yeah. But I'm like, you guys don't have any fucking drugs. Like I'm fighting this. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't say, dude, if I was facing 30 years in prison for drugs, I can't sit here with a straight face and say I wouldn't cooperate. Like who fucking knows?
Right. Yeah, that's one of the biggest like wives' tales about prison. I feel like, at least that from what I've heard is that like the whole like snitching is the worst thing you could do. How dare you even consider being a snitch when like 99.9% of the people that are
most people in federal prison probably have cooperated in some way because the drug laws are so harsh that especially back in the day with crack, that just because a guy's doing 10 years doesn't mean he didn't snitch. He was just keeping himself from doing 30 or life, taking deals, cooperating.
Right.
So yeah, it's such a cruel thing that the law does. They take your life and they just dangle it in front of your face. Do you like your life?
That is right.
I got a way out.
I got a way out.
It's evil, bro. And they act like they're your savior. Like, we're gonna help you out here.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's
so you knew because they didn't find any drugs, just cash. You knew that.
Yeah, I would never cooperate on the spot, anyways. Like if you're you never talk to the cops. You get your lawyer, and there's deals that are made behind closed doors, but you would never sign anything. You would never, you don't have to talk to them. You could just clam up. Like because you're not going to talk your way out of it. I'll tell you that much. I mean, I tried. I was like, look, I tried to bribe them. Because there was only like 4 guys over at the house.
Okay.
So and these were like guys in tracksuits. They hadn't made a big commotion. They didn't come in there. These were undercovers.
Okay.
They didn't come in with the SWAT gear. I don't even think the neighbors, because I lived in a nice area, I don't even think the neighbors knew what was going on at this point. They didn't kick the door down. I let them in, because they had the warrant. I was like, dude, look at all this cash. Like your boss isn't here yet. Your supervisor's not here. Take this money. I will go get you another 200,000. Just give me a day. Just give me a day and I'll come back. I'll be around. I'll work for you and I'll give you this money. Just let me get out of here. And what I was going to do was go get the rest of my cash if they had gone for it, and I was going to flee. I was going to go to Colombia.
Did you think they would consider? Did they consider it at all?
Nope.
What was their reaction?
Nope. These fucking dorks. They got pissed.
Fucking nerds.
These fucking nerds. I was like, this is such Northwest white boy bullshit. If these were Italians from fucking, the South Bronx or Boston, some Irish cops, they would have been on their fishing boats already. They would have been retired. But anyways, the guy, one of the guys got pissed. He was like, "You motherfucker!" Like they took it as an insult. I'm like, "Hey, dude,
fucking nerds.
Just offering, you dorks."
That's stupid.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening? You ended up.
So they brought me in. They couldn't get anything out of me. So they arrested me. They brought me in. They booked me. I was denied bail. Like I had bail money. They were like, "No, you don't have." The judge was like, "I will not set a bail for you because you're clearly a high level. You seem to be a high flight risk because of the amount of cash we caught with you. We think you have international criminal connections. So yeah, you got to fight your case from county jail. And that's the hardest time. That is the hardest. Every day feels like a week
in county jail.
Yeah. Every week feels like a year. It is brutal. The deprivation.
Where was the jail at?
This was in Portland.
In Portland. Okay.
Yeah, and you think Portland's like this nice, you associate it with like, vegan donuts, but man, there's gangbanging going on. Yeah. And in county jail, dude, the first thing you do, you walk in, you have to fight. So like one of the first things I did on my first morning, walked out, they were like, "Hey, skinny kid, who you fighting? You got to fade. You got to fade now, or we're going to beat you up and you're going to have to go to protective custody and hang out with the child molesters." And I'm like, "All right, well, I guess we're going to fucking fight."
So you got into a bunch of fights?
Yep, dude. I got into like 5 or 6 fights in my 8 months that I was in county fighting my case. God. And that's what kicked my security level up to like the highest level it could be, and that's why I got sent to a maximum security prison. So how fucked up is that?
That's
like fucked. A guy who doesn't even, I shouldn't be in a cell with a guy doing 500 years who was a shot caller for the Hells Angels. Like, why am I, a nonviolent kid, stepping over bodies in a maximum security prison? It's because I had to fight when I was in jail. So they make it so you can't prevent it,
Dude, that's fucking terrifying, man.
Yep.
So what was it like finally getting transferred out of the county jail to the super? It was a supermax or just
no. It was just it was just a max. It was just a max security. 2 Rivers Correctional Facility. There's a medium and a maximum. It's like 2 different facilities on the same right. Piece of land. But you're begging to go to prison after being in county for that long. You're just like, "Oh my God, like let me get to like a home. Let me get this wrapped up. Mm-hmm. Like whatever my fate's gonna be, let's go." So, they put you on, first of all, they send you to like a sorting facility, sorting prison.
You didn't go to the prison until you got sentenced, right?
That's right. You get sentenced. So we agreed, we took a plea deal finally. So the longer you wait, the longer you fight your case, if you've got a good case, right? Meaning it's not a slam dunk for the prosecution, the more willing they're going to be to make a good deal with you. Mm-hmm. So my lawyer would tell me, just hang on, buddy, because the longer you can wait, the more the prosecutor wants to get your case off the books. Right?
Right.
Because it's all about statistics. They want as much incarceration time as possible because it justifies, budgets every year and all this stuff and just keeping the apparatus going in their job.
And I'm sure you didn't have a public defender.
No, I had a good lawyer.
Yeah.
I had a very good lawyer. He was an obese, fat, we called him the Fat Man. We called him the Fat Man, Gorski. That's his real name. Shout out Gorski, one of the best defense lawyers in the Portland metropolitan area. And I hired him because I'm like, a guy with this much money to eat has got to be winning some cases. So he was like, the longer you stay in here, the more they're willing to play ball. Mm. So signed a plea deal for 36 months, money laundering, conspiracy. And then they ship you out of jail that night. They wake you up and they say, roll up. And you put all your belongings in a sack, and they put you on a bus. They put you on the chain, and then they sent us to a prison, like a holding facility where you wait, right, until they find a bed space for you in whatever prison you're going to go to.
Right.
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 So I was there, and that's like being in like solitary confinement. They keep you locked up basically 24 hours a day in a little cell. So that was torturous too. And yeah, then the day they say, hey, you're going off to Two Rivers, and I was like, fuck, it's the last place I wanted to go to, because that's a rough prison, and it's 8 hours from Portland in the middle of nowhere, right? Eastern Oregon. And so they put us on a chain, right? We call it the Gray Goose. You're locked up. You got your ankles and your wrists are bound, and you're on the bus for 8 hours. They take you off, right? You step off the bus. You're chained up side by side. And, you're like, wow, this is your new home. You're completely, it's an out of body experience. If you've never been through the prison system before, and nobody tells you what's going on either. So you're like, I'm just being brought through this gigantic bureaucracy, and I don't even know why half of the things are as they are. And so we're lined up. They get us off the bus, off the Gray Goose, in front of Two Rivers. We're lined up, chained up together, and this big Samoan dude, he's maybe like 3 or 4 men down from me on the chain. He fucking, as soon as they uncuff him, he turns and he fucking punches this guy next to him. He drops him like hard as fuck, just drops him. That dude ended up dying. He killed that dude. And the guy who punched him.
From the punch?
Yes. And that guy was a Samoan guy, and he was a lifer. And so he was trying to prove his stripes right away.
God.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I was like, oh my, over some marijuana, over some fucking weed. And now 11 years later, my fucking, my mom smokes it, takes gummies to go to bed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's, and there's been far worse stories of guys, getting locked up behind weed and drugs specifically.
Yeah. How many of the guys that you met that were in that prison were in there for something similar to you? Just like non-violent drug?
I was pretty unique. In that way, because in that prison, that was mostly, violent criminals and a lot of sex offenders and a lot of people doing life. Most guys at my level of the drug game would have gone to federal prison, or they would have been in a lower security prison. So I was pretty unique.
Oh, so you were in a state prison?
I was in a state prison.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit.
I didn't catch
I didn't
catch a Fed charge. Yeah. I didn't catch a Fed charge. The feds confiscated my money. So at the day I got arrested, they sent the DEA and Homeland Security down to investigate me. And they originally did charge me with a federal crime, but when they couldn't link, when they didn't have any links to drug sources,
right,
they were like, I guess they thought it wasn't worth their time. So they just seized the money and then gave the case back to the state.
Fuck.
Yeah.
It would have been way better to be in a federal prison, right?
Not a maximum security federal prison. Those are far, that's a myth. The lower security.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I have a lot of these guys on my podcast, and you hear their stories, and it's like, it makes my time look pretty tame.
Yeah.
Considering. Yes, the low level federal securities, like the camps, that's cake, right? That's where, like, they send the Wolf of Wall Street. He's playing tennis and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. It depends where I would have got sent to, but no, those max federal prisons are as tough, usually a lot more violent than an average state prison.
Really?
Because people are doing so much time, and there's people from everywhere. There's gangbangers and drug dealers from Chicago and New York and LA, and yeah, it's wild. Go listen to my podcast. I got some stories coming up from these guys, and you're just like, this is some third world shit. You would hear stories about this. Like my friend who was on my show, Big Herc. He's got a great,
yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, he's got a great YouTube channel. He would be like, people will get stabbed, and if the guy didn't die, like the guy who was doing the stabbing, if the guy he stabbed didn't die, they would just send the perpetrator to the hole for 30 days, and then they bring him back out because they didn't want to deal with it because there was so much of that going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they would send the guy who got stabbed to the hole.
That's so crazy. My friend Matt, who was in prison for mortgage fraud for like 12 years.
Oh, thank God it wasn't China, dude.
Yeah, exactly. He went to do Big Herc's podcast. And when he was doing his podcast, he explained to him that he basically found everyone he could to snitch on to lower his sentence. He got like 10 years off his sentence by snitching on people.
Wow.
He even found people in prison, like the one old guy who ran a Ponzi scheme, kept walking the yard with him every day and getting him to tell him stuff. And he just gave it. The guy ended up only getting like an extra year and a half on a sentence, but Matt got like 5 years off his sentence for basically snitching on this guy.
Whoa.
So he was telling Big Herc about like casually, he's like, absolutely, I cut anybody's throat I possibly could. And I guess Big Herc almost ended the podcast. Like,
right, for sure.
He wanted to like, he was like started sweating, and he was like about to like stop recording and like kick him out of the hotel room they were in.
Wow, yeah, I would have. That's despicable.
Matt said it was the most uncomfortable conversation he's ever had.
But yeah, I believe it, dude. That kind of shit is despicable. like there's one thing. It's one thing to like give up info, and this is what a guy was explaining to me too. Like, there's a difference between snitching and ratting. Snitching when you're in jail means like you're cooperating with authorities about something outside of the prison, right? Whether it's your case or whatever.
Right.
And then you might just get beat down for that. You know, you might just get beat down or exiled or whatever. That's kind of like nobody's business, you know?
Right.
But fucking ratting like that in prison where everybody's supposed to be like, we're like in this together.
Yeah.
That's despicable.
But
a guy who committed mortgage fraud, like, you can't expect that guy to be, you know.
No.
That's a gigantic lie.
At least he doesn't lie about it.
Right. At least he doesn't lie about the snitching.
Right.
You know what? I'm fine with that. I guess that's we can give him that.
You got to get this guy on your podcast.
Oh,
man.
I will.
You and him.
I will not end the conversation.
And him would be like, I could.
Does he live in LA?
No, he lives here.
Oh, we'll get him out.
He lives like an hour from here. You and him in a room together. I could listen to that for fucking hours. You guys would be great.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you know, people do a lot of things to save their skin, but man, that guy's lucky he didn't get a fucking bone crusher. You know, he didn't get get stabbed up.
He is 5'5" with a good pair of shoes on.
Wow, he's a tiny little twink, huh?
Tiny little guy. And that's what he said. That's what pretty much what motivated his entire life. His whole like thing into fraud and like
his
finding
stature.
He had a thing for like hot single moms and buying them fake tits. And,
right.
He's like every single thing he openly admits. He goes, I could honestly, if I really think about it, every single motivation in my life that has driven me has all gone back to my height.
Short man syndrome.
Who is that honest about that?
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty crazy.
That's incredible.
He's gone as far. I mean, he spent like 10 grand on his hairline to get his hair. He's got a better hairline than me. He's looked into having his shins elongated.
Oh my God, dude. Wow.
Dude, like,
just driven. What about some therapy? What about just being okay with yourself? You know?
He wouldn't be as successful as he is now.
What's he do now?
Now he's a podcast. He's a true crime podcast, and he writes books.
Wow.
He writes books. Like,
and he's successful at it.
Oh, he's so successful. He's one of the most, like, the first podcast I did with him on here was when he was still in the halfway house. He had never done an interview anywhere. He just emailed me because he saw my show, like some of the little documentaries I was doing on real estate. And he emailed me and he's like, hey, I went to jail for mortgage fraud. Could you help me make a TV show? And I'm like, I don't know about that, but you come to my podcast and we'll see if anyone likes it.
Yeah.
And that was like the jump off for this podcast.
Oh, no shit.
So I did that. And within a week, it had 1 million views.
Wow.
So
I might be able to get a TV show made for him. I'm out in LA, you know, you never know.
Well, now that he's made
big,
all this success, now he's got like production companies and networks knocking his door down.
That's the way to do it. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Matthew Cox. Yeah. People have reached out to me telling me to get this guy on the show.
Oh man, he's great. I've done like 10 podcasts with him ever since. But he's like taken that. Ever since we did that first podcast, I've never seen anybody take an opportunity and go so far.
Yeah,
he's the spokesperson. He's like the Ronald McDonald of home title lock.
Oh, really?
So like he is on all these internet, like these nationwide TV commercials.
Wow.
Like doing all this stuff. People fly him to do like talk at conferences.
Right.
Now.
So he's
like,
basically become like the Jordan Belfort.
Yes.
Speaking of the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
He talks about how you get away with it. He probably talks to law enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys go full. That's hilarious. Guys go full rat, dude.
Guys go full rat.
He looks like a rat, doesn't he?
Dude, he looks like a fucking rat. Oh my fucking God. It looks like a
You couldn't trust him
rat.
as far as you could throw him.
No, dude, with that grin, with that fucking teeth that
Evil.
are just shining
look,
out of his mouth.
Home Title Lock has a fucking dedicated web page on their website for him.
Cox falsified documents to make it appear that he owned properties and then fraudulently obtained several mortgages on them for 5 to 6 times their actual worth. He acquired millions of dollars this way. As was between 5 and 25 million. Wow. That's interesting. Wow. He began his life as a dedicated criminal in Central Florida after that offense.
Oh my God.
So he was forging documents.
Yes. Lots of documents. He would go and rent a house and somehow get his hands on like the deeds and the mortgage paperwork. And he would Photoshop it.
Unbelievable.
And then go to the bank and say, I forget exactly the fucking mechanics of it, but he would somehow get a hold of those documents, Photoshop them, and get a fucking loan on the house he was renting, and put like a family with kids. Like this one family had like a special needs child, and he basically stole their house from them. By like forging the documents.
It's kind of genius though. Like
really
I could
is.
just never, I don't know the first thing about any of that. It takes a certain kind of mind. I met a guy getting ready to go do Fed time that he had like a huge counterfeit money ring. And the guy, it wasn't like
really?
Yeah, and it wasn't no like amateur shit either. Like he was printing millions of dollars. And the way he was describing like how he got his hands on a money printing machine, like from like some, again, Chinese guy. It was just like fascinating. So you get a lot of these guys in federal prison that are like geniuses like this, like masterminds.
Yeah.
This guy probably didn't go to a prison where there was a whole lot of stabbings.
Yeah, no.
Maybe.
He was in a medium.
He was in a medium. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you go to a medium, shit kicks off every now and then, but like if you kind of keep to yourself.
Right.
I don't know. If people found out he was ratting though, did anybody know he was ratting in jail?
I think a couple people actually did find out, but he found a way to get leverage on that person. Like he found a way to go to them like, hey bro, I heard that this has been going around. I don't think you want everybody to know about this, do you?
Right,
and he would use his dagger tongue to
oh my
sort of
God,
survive.
I'm scared to have this guy on my podcast. Is he gonna dig shit up on me?
He's a very nice guy. He's a very nice
so
guy.
he doesn't talk about like the Lord. Does
No,
he found like Jesus?
He looks like a cult leader. But
Absolutely, it looks like he gives it up to Jesus before every ad read he does.
No, not at all.
Oh, thank God.
He's
Michael
actually-
Franchise does that. Franchise, really? He's like, I give it up to Jesus Christ, and he's like he was like the ex-mobster that was making like crazy money, and I'm like, oh, do we have to give it up to Jesus? That was so 90s.
Anyways, his podcast with Big Herc is a fucking nail biter.
Oh wow, that's so funny, dude. Oh yeah. Big Herc was he was a lot of fun to have on the show though.
Was he?
Yeah, but he talk. I mean, but these federal prison stories, dude. Yeah, talking about as soon as you get there, you go get a shank. You get strapped up, and the guy who was making him was like the guy that worked in the kitchen, and he could get you. He saw fights with literal knives, not shanks, butcher knives. He saw like riots kicking off where people were stabbing each other with knives. So it's like clearly, and the guards are all in on it. Yeah, all kinds of shit. Definitely go listen to my story with Herc. But yeah, I mean, some of that happened in state prisons.
How did you get celled up with the guy who was like the leader of the Hells Angels?
So I asked him about that, and he was like, probably it's because you're the opposite of me.
Oh, you asked him, the Hells Angels guy?
Why the fuck are we celled up together?
Right.
And I was like, I don't gangbang, obviously. And he was like, probably because you're the opposite of me, right? They don't want to put in 2 gangbangers in a cell together.
Right.
Because that's just too much time for them to conspire.
Right.
So, and I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But Jimmy protected me. My cellmate Jimmy.
Was he in there for life?
He was in there for life. He ended up killing a guy. And he was on death row, and I think he beat his case because it was a self-defense thing. But if you kill somebody and you're doing life and you kill somebody in prison, they usually send you to death row. So, but he's the one that basically told the other gangs, the white gangs, because I refused to click up. I was like, I'm not a follower. You know what I mean? Like I'm me. I'm not going to join your gang.
Yeah.
What? And then I got to go put in work for you and kill somebody, and then I end up doing life.
Right.
So my logic was like, give me a strap, give me a burner, give me a shank, and if you feel froggish and you want to come at me, I would rather defend myself, you know, and stab one of you guys in self-defense,
Right.
and at least maybe be able to beat the case, than me having to go put in work for you and then I never get out of here. That's crazy. So I refused to do that. So, but before they could put like a green light on me, Jimmy like intervened. He was like, "This is a good kid."
So
yeah,
he saved you.
He was, dude. I owe him my life, and he, yeah, you know, to this day, I mean, it's like, I think about him all the time.
Is he still alive?
He is. He's kind of lost his mind because he's been on death row for so long.
God,
for the last decade, because he got sent to death row right after I got classed down to minimum. And yeah, and
why did they send him then?
Because that's when he killed it.
He killed a guy in prison.
Yeah, but it took fucking almost a decade to like adjudicate that. And so, you know, because he doesn't have any money, he's paying like a public defender, you know, so they just keep you in isolation for a decade away from everybody. So that, and you know, he was already in his 50s when that happened. So now he would be in his mid 60s. So, you know, he's deteriorating.
God,
and his mind is probably mush. It's very sad.
Do they have a death row in California or Oregon?
They do. They don't. The governor put like a stay of execution on anybody, on everybody that's on death row. Okay. Yeah. So it's still on the books. They have executed people before, but they don't really do it anymore. California is kind of the same way. Like as long as Newsom's in power, nobody will ever be executed again, but they keep people on death row. Right. So they keep you in death row conditions, even though you'll never be executed, which is like torture. People that have been on death row for decades appeal the courts all the time to like let them be killed. Think about that. How fucked is that? And the courts are like, no.
And also people on death row get exonerated all the fucking time.
That's true too. That's true too. Right.
So we have at least 2 or 3 death rows in Florida. I went to the one in Stark, Florida one time where I'm friends. I have a lawyer friend who represents some people who end up on death row. He represents a lot of cartel members.
Really?
Like he gets flown like private to fucking Colombia.
Oh, wow.
He'll literally, he explained it to me. He goes, I get on the plane, I get off, I get escorted to a hotel, and I wait in the lobby until they call me up.
Yeah.
And he fucking.
Oh, so he's getting paid a nice fee for that.
Yeah, bro.
Wow.
It is crazy. And the way he explains it, like how like some of those top level cartel members are able to just basically live their lives with their high paid lawyers.
Yeah.
And the pawns are the ones that get in trouble, like the low level guys.
Totally.
That's a whole nother crazy story.
Yeah.
But anyways, what was I talking about? So he was representing a guy who was on death row. And I guess he believed this guy was innocent.
Yeah.
But apparently this guy had like raped. He was a truck driver who had like raped and murdered a bunch of girls. And so we were there across the street from the prison starting from like 9 p.m. to like 1 a.m. And there was across the street. It's so weird, dude. It was so eerie because it was like dark and foggy and cold. And there was one big group sectioned off of people who were protesting the death of him.
Right.
Because everybody knew he was supposed to be executed at that prison.
Right.
And whenever the prison executes somebody, there's a bell that rings, I guess, on the prison grounds. So there was a whole group of people protesting the execution, and then 50 yards away, there's a whole nother group of people who were the victims of people who have been raped and who have family members or daughters that have been raped and killed, and people who knew some of the actual victims that were there.
Yeah.
They were there to like get their sort of, the justice served on the guy.
Yeah.
And we were going back and forth, like interviewing people on both sides, like getting their perspective on it. And it was fucking crazy because like the people that were there who had family members who were victims or who knew the victims, you could understand why they were there and you could justify their pain and why they wanted to be there to see the guy die. But the people on the other side, the only reason they were there is because they knew people who were innocent who got exonerated off death row.
Right.
So they're like, we can't fucking prove this. There's not enough
Right.
DNA evidence. Like
Right.
the trial, it wasn't done right.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was botched with the prosecutor.
Right.
So like they both had a very good point.
Right. Right.
Because I guess in this specific case, I forget the guy's name now, but there was not enough evidence to execute this guy. And no matter what you believe about fucking the death penalty, I think the one thing that absolutely is true is you cannot fucking kill people when you don't have all the solid DNA evidence.
Of course, dude. Look at that. And they denied an appeal too that claimed that Gary Bowles was too intellectually disabled to be put to death.
This isn't the actual guy.
Oh, this isn't the same guy.
Must be a different guy.
So this is the guy, but the guy you're talking about, they ended up putting him to death.
I believe so. That night they didn't. They stayed it.
It was a stay of execution. So the governor.
They had the guy fucking strapped to the lethal injection thing, right? The people were in the room in the fucking movie theater with the curtains open, watching, and at the last minute they just closed the curtain and stayed it. And they gave him like another couple weeks, maybe. Oh, what is the guy's fucking name? His name was. Oh, it's gonna kill me. Google the lawyer Bjorn Brunvand represents serial killer or not killer put to death in Stark, Florida. Bjorn BJORN BRUNVAND.
It's a free plug.
Yeah, bro, but it was
wow.
eerie.
Yeah,
and then
that's crazy.
Like 30 minutes before he was supposed to be executed, all the news stations pulled up and there was fucking news everywhere, and it was just such a surreal fucking scene.
They'll put you to death in Florida, man.
Yeah, they will.
Florida and Texas, you do not want to fuck around. Utah too. They will fucking kill you, man. Yeah. It's but
I can't imagine.
If you think about if people on the right politically would look at a country like China, who clearly their values are not aligned with. I would say most Americans' values are not aligned with those of an authoritarian communist dictatorship.
Right.
That's what they do, how they execute people. That's you're practicing the same thing. Like you claim you don't want communism or big government, but you are practicing the most big government thing when you let the state, the government, take somebody's life. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I look at it. It's like, I don't want to be like China. I don't want to be like Saudi Arabia. I don't want to be like these awful, savage places. Mm. So we constantly need to be like, it's not enough to be like, well, China executes thousands of people a year. We can execute one or two innocent black guys in Texas a year. I'm like, what kind of standard is that you're holding yourself to, comparing yourself to China? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's it gives me the chills.
It's got to be so different being on fucking death row than any other prison. Because you're dealing with people who are like looking at the finish line. They know they're dead men.
Yeah. Sometimes. Again, it's state to state,
Is this it? Oscar Ray Bolin. That's him. Convicted of murder and the slayings of 3 women in Florida. So was he actually killed? When was this published?
January 6, 2016.
Go to the bottom. There's probably an update. Right there. Man who was convicted 10 times of 3 separate slayings, scheduled to die for one of them. So this was like before. So I think
he's
he
still
might
alive.
have been killed.
Well, it doesn't say anything.
If you just Google Oscar Ray Bolin, what comes up?
The appeals court denied the motion. Oh, so he hasn't even appealed to the Supreme Court yet. Okay.
Yeah, that was all happening that night.
That's fascinating. Humans, I would like to talk to family members of victims whose, killers or alleged killers were executed. Like, do they feel better?
I think they do.
I think they do, actually.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of them. I mean, it was sad, dude. Talking to there was a guy there who had his young daughter was raped and murdered, and he was sitting. He goes to every execution. I was like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Every time somebody dies, everyone gets executed for murder and rape." He's like, "I'm here to support the fucking families and the victims and whatever." And it's there he is.
That's him right there.
He's dead. January 7th, 2016.
Oh wow. Damn, he's from Portland.
He was probably guilty.
I don't want a guy. Yeah, if we're just stereotyping the look, I'm saying he's guilty.
Probably fucking guilty.
The murders went unsolved for nearly 4 years.
He was in prison basically his whole life. He got locked up in his 20s. In 87.
Some other shit. Gotcha.
He got locked up in 87, bro. And he was just killed in 4 years ago.
Right.
Or 5. How many years ago?
That's how long it takes. That's how long it fucking takes to get executed. If you appeal it. That's wild. That's why it's taken my boy Jimmy so long to finally to get his day in court. So it's wild. Yeah, bro, damn.
It's crazy.
He's from Portland, Indiana. Well, I don't like the fact that he's from Portland. That's where I'm from.
Not Indiana.
Indiana's the sketchiest state in the union, dude. I've always said Indiana's one of the worst places because it's in the north.
That's where
but it's
Gucci Man went to prison.
In Indiana?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. For shooting the guy who was trying to rob him?
No. What was his late? No, he actually didn't go to prison for that. He got off.
He beat that. I thought he got the
he beat
gun
that
charge
for self-defense, but no, he was in prison for
Something
think it was
else?
like gun charges and like pushing a bitch out of a car, out of like a moving car.
You can't push a bitch out of a moving car in Indiana?
I mean, no, he did it in Atlanta, but they sent him to prison. He did his time in Indiana.
Oh, damn, yeah. No, it's a fucked state.
I love how so listening to your podcast reminded me so much of some of the rap music I listen to because you're talking about chickens.
Yeah. We get that. That's West Coast slang. We call a chicken a kilo.
A chicken is a kilo. So so when I was listening to it, I was like having flashbacks, like some of the Gucci Man music I used to listen to back in the day.
Oh, really?
Because he talking about like whipping up chickens.
Yeah, that comes from the West Coast. That comes from E40, and because there's a lot of Southern. West Coast underground like crossover. So cooking a chicken is from the Bay Area.
But why
slang is from the Bay Area?
A lot of those guys talk about how they would have women cooking up the crack or like cooking the coke, but he'd make sure they're all naked.
yeah, that's a big myth. I think.
It's a myth?
I think it's a huge.
There's
myth.
no reason for.
I
them
don't
to
think
be
there's
naked?
there's no reason for that. I guess because they can't steal your shit.
Okay.
But why would you want to trust a woman? Anybody, doesn't have to be gender specific, but why? Why would you want to trust a naked chick to cook up a kilo of coke, something that valuable, into crack? You wouldn't.
No,
you'd have a chemist. You'd have a special. I knew guys from the hood. That's what they did. Like Mexican guys, they specifically, they wouldn't sell drugs. They wouldn't buy them. They would be paid on consignment, or they would be paid a fee to mix the drugs, to whip up a to stretch a kilo of coke, right?
Right.
They would know how to do that. They would know how to cook up crack. You'd give it to a specialist. You wouldn't give it to a naked chick.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Damn it. I know. Did I just bust your fantasy?
It made the music video so much better.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know who started that. I think that was like New Jack City, the movie back in the 80s.
Oh,
like
that was a great fucking movie.
Yeah. But I don't think much of that happens. I think it's much less glamorous, but there are it's crazy. There's people in the Bronx right now, Dominican, Puerto Rican women that are in a room like this, and they're all sitting at a big table and they're just cutting up heroin, and just milling it and chefing it, and they're getting paid. And that it just becomes, and they're just getting paid like a salary. They're just getting paid like $60 an hour, just like people are trimming up bud somewhere.
It's like an assembly line.
And it just becomes normalized. Like these guys, these kids, these sicarios that were guarding El Mayo.
Yeah.
They're just sitting around like bullshitting like any group of friends would do.
Yeah.
They don't consider it, what they're doing is criminal. They really don't. And it gets like that. You get so normal, especially in a culture like that. To where you're like, this is the family business.
Ed Calderon was telling me a lot of those kids, those Sicario, like bodyguards, those young kids, a lot of them are like TikTok stars.
Oh yeah, they do a lot of
like huge TikToks. They'll like flash all the fucking drugs and their guns.
Now, how can you do that on TikTok? But I say cunt once and I get flagged.
That's what I'm saying.
Doing a bit, like a comedy bit. How can you do that?
That it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Is that because it's in Mexico and like the laws are different, like the TikTok laws are?
Are they different?
I can't imagine that. Well,
The
it's
TikTok
definitely
laws might
different
be
in China. It's different in China, obviously. Because they're the ones that own TikTok and they're pushing that on us.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's different.
They have like rules for their kids that use TikTok,
Yeah.
right? There's like an off time.
Yeah, there's a time, there's a limit to the amount you can use, and like what they show you in the feed is
They
like
make it
smart shit.
educational,
They make
yeah.
it educational. Yeah. So I don't know. I can't imagine Mexico if they're allowing people to wave guns. I don't know, dude. That's fucking crazy. I know a lot of prisoners have TikTok accounts now.
In prison?
Yeah. Some of the biggest TikTok accounts are prisoners.
What?
Talk about that. How do you smuggle a gigantic iPhone? You don't. You nobody's shoving that. I don't care how gay you are. You're not fitting that in your ass. You're not keystering an iPhone 14. You're getting that brought in from a guard. Let's talk about that. How do all these inmates have the latest technology? You know how much? You know, this is the going rate for this getting smuggled in is $1,500.
$1,500.
Yeah, that's about what you got to pay a guard. It's like a going rate. It's like a market price.
How does the guard get paid?
By somebody on the outside. That's how drugs get sold. Let's talk about that. How do drugs get sold in prison? The same way cell phones get smuggled and purchased in prison. Somebody on the outside, one of your people will bring money to a guard, right, on his day off. Or if you're selling me drugs in prison and you're also a prisoner, my person on the outside will bring your person money, or they'll put it on your books. Right. They'll put money, and when they see
commissary.
Exactly. And when they see that, boom. Now we're straight. Now we're even Steven. That's one of the ways it happens. Yeah.
If I was in prison, I would take up smoking cigarettes, I think.
Yeah, there's that, but they made stupidly, right? They made cigarettes illegal. So what do you think that did?
Dumb.
But it made a huge market.
Yeah.
Made a huge fucking market for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course it did.
Of course it did, right?
That's
so
the
gangs
most
loved it.
obvious thing I want to do if I go to prison. I'm going to start smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
The first thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be outside working out and smoking cigarettes at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Like old like men, like real men. Yeah, we're going to fucking get jacked, but we're also going to be damaging our lungs.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So, fuck, they're big on TikTok. I always kind of like joked that if I owned a prison, I would have podcast studios in there because true crime is such a like blossoming genre in podcasting.
Oh, and
the biggest podcasts in the world are true crime.
Yeah. Yeah, and the inmates are hilarious.
Oh,
hilarious.
Bet. And there's no shortage of content. You live in a content machine.
It's one of the funniest places. That's why, like, I'm trying to get this show made. I wrote a script, like a pilot, based around just guys in prison because it's so funny. There's so much funny shit that happens. That's where I started doing comedy. Was at these talent show nights in a maximum security prison.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they had talent shows.
Yeah. If you're well-behaved, every now and then, like monthly, they had these like just talent nights. And you would go down and, dude, I've had some rough shows on the outside, but it's nothing compared to bombing in prison.
Oh,
like
really?
You had to get, if you didn't hook the crowd in like the first 10 seconds, they'd start booing. They would throw oranges. Fights would break out. Like that's what taught me to like get to the punchline quickly. So if you watch my comedy, like I'm at the joke immediately. Like there's not a lot of big setup.
Wow.
And that comes from prison. That comes from doing comedy in prison. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you first got out of prison, actually, I gotta pee.
Okay.
Let's come back and go like start when you got out of prison.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. His uncle was Frank Lucas. Let's fucking get going. We can keep this in the pod. I don't give a shit. If David gets mad, he can.
We had to take a pee break, so we're talking about David Lucas.
Yeah, David Lucas, one of like the best up and coming comedians in the country. Dude, he's so good. He's killing it right now.
I love when
he's an ingenious roaster.
I love when he fucking roasts people in the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so good, bro. There's nobody better.
It's schoolyard like bullying. It's hilarious. It's all off the top of the dome. You know what I mean? Like he's the real deal. He's the real deal.
That's a talent.
Yeah,
I feel like I don't know shit about comedy, but I feel like having comedy, like perfecting a bit, is completely in a separate world from like dealing with the crowd.
Totally. And it's art versus being naturally funny.
Yeah.
We call it like back of the bus funny.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not just saying that because he's black. Like he reminds me a lot of the guys in prison, like how just naturally funny they were. We'd be at the table playing dominoes or whatever, and people would just be snapping on motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like hot potato. You didn't want to, if the hot potato came to you, you wanted to get it off of you as fast as you could, right? So you would just, as it was coming around the circle to me, like people were just getting roasted.
Yeah.
I would be like rapidly fucking coming up with insults for somebody else just to push it off of me. You know what I mean? So that was like training. That was training. And then during the talent show nights, that's when I would write jokes. And I didn't even really know they were jokes at the time. It was just like I would observe things in the prison that were funny.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize these were comedy bits. I would just write them down and I would get up there and I would be like, have you guys fucking noticed this? Right? So one of my first bits was about how, like, when a riot is about to break out in prison, you can tell because everybody will bring their boots, their like work boots, to the showers. Because if a riot kicks off on the yard, that means everybody in the prison has to start fighting. Doesn't matter. You don't have to be on the yard. People will break out in brawls everywhere, in the day room, at the chow hall, in the showers.
Wow.
So you don't want to be caught fighting butt naked without the proper footwear. That's for real. That's a thing. So you will see motherfuckers butt ass naked shower. We'd be showering off naked, but with our boots on still. And so my first punchline was, it looks like we're all about to do black porn right now.
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah, so that got like a huge laugh. So I was like, oh, okay. So that's kind of how I got into it. I would just be like roasting like the Mexican gangs. I'm like, Ernesto's been locked up for 5 years, but his baby mama's 5 months pregnant. How the fuck did that happen? You better talk to your cousin, Ernesto. You know, shit like that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. But David Lucas reminds me a lot of that. Just incredibly, like, that level of funny just comes from not giving a fuck.
Right.
And I don't have that. Like, I'm not that quick, but it's just like this abandon that people have. It's amazing.
He has that thing about him where he's like he's not trying. You can tell he's not trying that hard.
No.
Some people try very hard,
yeah,
and they're still very good or not, but he is he doesn't seem like he doesn't have to put in a lot of effort into it.
He doesn't have to at all. He's completely himself.
That's so fucking
And that's
good.
when you become
that's unique.
That's when you go from being a good comic to a great comic.
Yeah.
Is when you just let go and just be yourself.
Yeah, but you still gotta like put in a lot of work. I feel
like.
Especially today's age with
of course,
YouTube,
dude,
you know.
It never ends, bro. It never. I wish I was a comic in 1987.
And that's a thing I feel like sometimes doesn't connect. I feel like a lot of people who are just naturally good at shit, talented at shit, like David, a lot of them can't figure out the discipline and the relentless work it takes to like make it
absolutely
big, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why these guys I was locked up with would never dream of like going to Hollywood or it just, you know, it takes too much discipline. That's why most comedians aren't ready for this new age, because they don't have like a business mind for it, you know, like look, all the shit I do, I'm like talking about like brand deals, and then
you have like 11 podcasts.
And then, and I'm going over talking about like, oh, do this on the thumbnail. So I'm being a graphic designer, and I'm talking about titling it. I'm a marketing team.
Yep.
And then, you know what I mean? And then also I'm over here like trying to write about my breakup, you know? So it's like you have to wear so many hats now.
Meanwhile, you're in Sinaloa interviewing El Mayos.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too. Yeah. And then I'm fucking talking to hitmen in Mexico. So you just like, you have to be so dynamic now. It's unfair. Like you can't expect people to be able to wear that many hats. Sometimes.
Definitely not.
So that's why it's like, I want to turn this YouTube shit. It's going to transition into comedy. I know it will, you know, but it just takes a lot of time and you got to break out somehow. So I was like, let me tell my story and let me get hot this way. And then I'll bring people over to the comedy.
So what was like the spark that was like, I want to put all this stuff on YouTube and put these like serialized podcast episodes out there and make all these fucking shorts? How did that all happen? And how
desperation, nothing else.
Desperation?
No, it was like I want to tell this story. Because it was the book. It was the book.
The book is
I
what
wrote
inspired it all.
The book is. I thought he was going to bring
What's
it
the
up.
book
You
called?
don't have to. Days of the Trap.
Days of the Trap.
Yeah, you could just go, type it in Amazon.
Okay.
But I was like, there's so much more to this. Like it was literally thinking like a businessman, like a drug dealer. I looked at the market and I was like, this is being underserved. Like there's people that are with crime and drug and prison shows, but they're not. Yeah,
I love the fucking title. Or
Yeah.
I love like the cover of it is beautiful. It's
Oh,
perfect.
thank you, man.
Simple and like.
Yeah, that's it right there. And I think it's only available on Kindle right now because we're reprinting it. We took the rights back from the publishing company and now we're going to relaunch it.
Oh, cool.
So you might only be able to buy it on Kindle if anybody's interested. But we'll be relaunching that soon with an audio book. But basically, I looked at YouTube and the algorithm, and like I was saying, it's either one or the other. It's either dorks from the BBC that are like interviewing cartel members that are like, what would you do? Like, I saw a motherfucker talking to a guy from the Sinaloa cartel in a mask with an AK-47. He was like, what would you do if you found out I was a police officer? And the Mexican guy's like, where the fuck did you get this guy? You're gonna ask me that on camera?
Right.
You're gonna make me answer that?
Right.
What do you think?
Right.
So it's like that shit, and then it was, like for lack of a better word, like hood dudes, ghetto dudes that are super entertaining, but they have like terrible. They're filming it on iPhones and shit. So it was just a market niche. I'm like, nobody's doing this. Let me try to do this. I think I could do it. I think it can work. And so it's so far it's been working out. But that was really it. Like it was just opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have you seen some of the old like Vice documentaries, what's it called, Chirac, where they go through Chicago?
Oh,
and they're, like,
yes,
documenting all the fucking
trap
houses in
Yeah,
Chicago,
yeah,
bro, and
yeah.
how basically it's all the whole like drug scene there is intertwined in the rap game.
Yes.
That's like fucking one of the most amazing
Yeah.
fucking pieces of journalism I've
Yeah.
ever seen.
Yeah. Vice was really good back then.
They were really fucking
Yeah,
good back then.
yeah.
Man.
Yeah. They're a little watered down now. They're a little.
Oh, it's a 180.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not even close.
They
to
sold
that
it.
anymore.
And
yeah.
it's just, it's a different thing. But yeah, that shit's insane.
So
Chicago's nuts.
When you started putting this stuff out on your YouTube channel, did you expect it to like get as big as it did?
I knew because of the nature of the material that it was clickbaity. I was like,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna get some eyeballs on us, but no, I didn't expect it to pop this quickly. Fuck no. I told my producer, the guy who films it, sets it up. He's now involved in creative decisions.
Yeah.
The guy who he does all the editing, is my right hand man, Brian. I told him let's give this a year. Like just give me a year. I'm gonna underpay you for how much work you're gonna do, but just give it to me and then we'll reevaluate. And 3 episodes later, we had fucking 200,000 subscribers. I mean, it was
it's insane.
yeah,
man.
yeah. 4 months ago, I was working in a restaurant.
You have like the short videos on YouTube that have like 100 million views. It's literally insane.
Yeah.
There's one
of them.
I think the first one I saw was where you tell how to like evade going to jail when you get pulled over. Or something like that.
Yeah. Talking about getting pulled over.
Yeah.
My time getting pulled over. So we had a lot of those, and it pops, it ebbs and flows, right? Like with the, how the numbers are, but I'm just focused on like growing the show, taking it to a next level that nobody's doing. Like I want to be the Anthony Bourdain of like drug shows. Like
So
I
you
want
wanna
to
be,
travel
like,
to all these
boots
different
on the
places.
ground.
Yeah, exactly. But make it entertaining, make it a little funny, and make it
Yeah.
fucking different,
Yeah.
Like nobody's talking about the shit that me or Luis is talking about. Like
No.
people are just like drug routes and the cartel is stronger than ever. Well, what is the cartel? And the cartel's coming to your city. No, the fuck they're not. Like
Right.
nobody's really covering that shit. So that's kind of I really want to like dig deep and have it come from a personal place too, So
Yeah, that's fascinating. Roger, he knows where George Ochoa lives. Like he said I asked
Really?
him about it. I'm like, can we go there? He's like, yeah, if you want.
Wow.
He's like, I'll fly down there tomorrow. We'll go. I know exactly where his horse ranch is. I'll walk right up to his front door.
That's a great Roger Reeves impression.
But
so the Ochoas apparently were, they say, according to Cocaine, what do they call it? Cocaine Cowboys,
Cocaine
that
Cowboys,
documentary.
yeah.
That guy, Billy Corbin, Florida boy.
yeah, he's been on here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He's
That's
great.
right. He was saying the Ochoas were really the number one guys,
Yes.
Yeah.
And Pablo was kind of like Chapo. Maybe not a glorified manager, but kind of, he wasn't like the the main guy. The main guy were the Ochoas. Old man Ochoa.
You would think that, right? Because they fucking got Pablo and they killed him.
Yeah.
And they fucking posed with him like he was a fucking
like a deer.
Right, like a deer. Yeah, exactly. So you would think that he had to have been part of some sort of PR thing, just like El Chapo was.
Yeah, yeah. So they said old man Ochoa, just like El Mayo Zambada.
Yeah,
never did a day in prison.
Mm-hmm.
That old school patriarch. He was a horse breeder. You know, he was part of the oligarch. You know, the oligarchic kind of circle in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
But they say he was the biggest trafficker out of the whole Medellin Federation back in the day. So yeah, his son George Ochoa, I guess, is free.
Yeah,
and just living his life.
Yeah, he said. Roger said that he breeds horses now.
Yeah. Well, they all exactly.
The whole family.
That was legitimate. Yeah, they've always been horse breeders.
Oh, they always have.
They've always been horse breeders.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Well, I might have to take a trip with Roger down in his his Cessna airplane.
How
dude.
sick would that be?
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, there's nobody doing that now. I don't think. I mean, now that you think, since Vice, I don't think there's anybody really doing like that fucking raw run and gun type.
Yeah.
Like in the jungle documentary interviews.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't want to be like I don't necessarily want to be a journalist. You know, I want to incorporate like politics and culture and all of these different elements of wherever I'm documenting. Like I want to bring something, you know, like the way the Bourdain show really became about the culture and the politics of a country itself, not really about food.
Right.
Like that's kind of what where I'd like to take the show, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be a journalist, you know? I want to be a drug dealer.
Yeah.
A former drug dealer who is just kind of like living out his fantasy, like getting to interview like members of the fucking Sinaloa cartel.
Right.
I'm like, this is so serendipitous. Like I used to buy drugs from these guys.
Right.
And now here we are a generation later and I'm talking to them.
How much of your work is still like, how much comedy are you doing? How much stand-up comedy do you still do?
I still do a bunch. I mean,
Really?
I'm a stand-up comedian at the end of the day.
So
like,
that's your number one thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
of
okay.
course. And I still do probably 5 or 6 shows a week
Oh,
when I'm
wow.
in Los Angeles. Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm still on the road every now and then, you know. So we're starting to sell tickets and we're gonna make a big push, go on tour and do all that kind of stuff. But this is the first step to like really like getting out to the people, you know.
And you were one of the first people to actually be ambushed on stage.
Yes, that was my first viral video. Dude, we have a video of us showing that to, this is just me talking about it. We have a video of us in a trap house showing that video to cartel members.
Really?
Yes, and them just laughing their fucking ass off.
No.
They're like, show us some of your YouTube videos.
That's
And we're all sitting around
hilarious.
smoking weed.
No, find the one where the guy actually attacks him.
Yeah.
You
What's
said-
that? No, that's comedian describes being attacked
Go
on stage
back.
by a midget.
No, at the end of it shows it.
Oh, yeah,
Does it?
yeah. That's true, I guess.
I don't have audio.
Reach my face, you know? Let one of you motherfuckers rush the stage and try to slap me, okay? I got attacked on stage recently.
Yeah.
Let one of you motherfuckers rush the stage and try to slap me, okay? I got attacked on stage recently. A short, tiny little fucking Oompa Loompa 5'1" man rushed a stage of a comedy show I was doing in Hollywood.
Oh my
I got
God.
Will Smith, but not really. I got Carlton. You know what I'm saying? This little
How long ago was that?
That was right. That was around the same time that Will Smith,
No,
the Will Smith slap on
way.
Chris Rock happened. Yes, this was like the end of February,
So
early
it was
March.
like all around the same time.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happened to a lot of people.
Exactly.
It happened to Dave Chappelle.
Happened to Chappelle. Exactly. And dude, that's been happening to comedians, not non-famous comedians, forever. By the way, I just want to point
has
that
it
out.
really?
Yeah, drunk people hate when they fuck up and you make a fool of them. Like I was shredding that guy. Like they were, I had the crowd like doubled over, and it was a black show too, so they were slapping the table.
You were like, that guy's been fucked in every hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I called the guy a snitch finally.
Oh,
And
shit.
In perfect snitch mode, he rushed the stage. So, but after we go off camera right there, you
Yeah.
don't see it, but I had the crowd so on my side. I took the guy by the nape of his neck because he's like 5'7", and I'm 6'6".
Yeah.
So I just like WWE like power slammed him through a fucking table. And these, dude, a couple of these fucking audience members, these black dudes run over because we're wrestling on the ground. I'm trying to like hockey punch him and shit, like pull his hoodie over his head. These guys run over and they start stomping him. They start kicking the shit out of him.
Oh my God.
Dude, yes. Yes, dude. It was wild. So that happened. And then literally, and then I was like, oh, wait, they were filming that? So I told the producer, I'm like, send that over to me. I might be able to do something with this. And then like a week or two later, the Will Smith slap happened. And that was my Kim Kardashian sex tape moment. I'm like, send me that fucking video, dude.
Yeah.
And I posted it. And within a month, it had 3, 4, 5 million views. And now it's like over 10. This is the full.
This is the full. Okay,
this is the full one. If you find the short kind of sums it up.
You can see if you hover over the timeline, Austin, it'll show you where like, so go like a minute before that. Like right there. Yeah. Go right there. Play it.
Oh yeah, the guy's bragging about how he got into the show on a Groupon.
Where was this? This is outside?
This was like an outdoor on a patio in Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now that the big guy's gone, I feel emboldened, you know?
So I had 2 hecklers. One of them left.
All right. My heart was fluttering a little bit. Damn. You see, I got, because I'm good with my right, I'm used with my left, but I got over here like, hey, how's that thing going?
Yeah.
Fat ass out. Anyways. It's a prison, so I see the danger, bro. Yeah.
That means you fucking get caught in your bullshit. You got caught.
Damn, bro. That guy.
You got caught?
In every hole. You never been fucking see exactly. I'm way more G than you, bro. I'm way more gangster than you. You snitch. Hey, you snitch. That's how you got out.
I was so high off an edible. I should have just dropped him right there. But I was so high too. That's what you don't know about that. So I was like, this is surreal. I was like, is he really coming up here?
He's suing the venue? What is
Yeah.
he suing the parking lot?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was like a hookah lounge or something.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So, and dude, if you go read the comments, everybody's like, that guy definitely snitched.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
If he got that mad when you called him
Yeah.
a snitch, that
Yeah.
was the one. Like the
100%.
fucking him in all the holes, that didn't piss him
that didn't
off.
piss him off. Calling him a snitch, that was his trigger word, you know? Yeah, so I chopped that up into like multiple different clips, but yeah, so that was like the first, like that made my channel pop, my personal channel.
Okay.
And then
how many views does that have?
that one, the short original one is like over 10 million, and then
That's
I cut
3 million on this one.
Yeah, just on that's the long video, and then
Oh
there's
my
another one with like
God.
6 million that's got like a B-sides to it. So yeah, so I still get paid off of this. So
That
I
is-
want to thank this guy if he's watching. You got me paid, motherfucker.
That is so fucking funny, bro.
Yeah. So yeah, dude. But then the Connect just hit those shorts, man. Those shorts just hit.
are something else.
And I was talking about getting pulled over with a bunch of bud in the trunk and like the different throw off methods that we would use. Can I talk about some of those?
yeah.
So a big thing we did, so we took so many trips up I-5, man, with that trunk loaded. By the end, I would have somebody go pick up the product for me, right? And I would have like a spotter car on him, right? But for forever, we just went up that we just threw it in the trunk and fucking crossed our fingers, right? So, but sometimes we would put like police or military stickers on the back of our cars, you know, because cops love the military, right? That's kind of the same thing. It's a law
Right.
enforcement. So that would be like a throw off. One time I got pulled over by a cop and I told him I was on my way up to Portland to enlist, and he fucking saluted me and was like, just be safe, quit speeding. Like that's the way I got out of it. And
Where are you going, buddy?
Meanwhile, I got 20 pounds in the trunk. You know what I'm saying?
Fucking
Yep.
way.
Yep. I pulled that once. I had different little tips for getting pulled over. Like I would immediately cop to, like if I got pulled over, I learned to like immediately like confess to the fact that I was speeding or I took a turn. Cause then you would put the officer at ease immediately.
Right.
This guy, I clearly, like I was going down like the side of a mountain. Like it's really like rural up there. So I'm just speeding down this like stretch of highway that goes straight down. You can't not speed. Right. And it was a speed trap. So I got pulled over going like 15 over the speed limit. And I immediately was like, dude, I know I hit that way too fast. I'm sorry about that. So then immediately like you cop to like the small infraction.
Right.
So it puts the cop at ease, and he's like, well, this is just a good guy. He's a citizen, you know?
That's
so
so
it just
funny.
immediately drops his any kind of suspicion that he has,
That's
you know?
so funny, man.
Yeah. So I clipped that and threw it up there, and people seem to take to it.
Dude, when I was back in like the mid 2000s, I used to make a lot of East Coast trips, like surfing, like traveling from here to like South Florida, and I would go across Alligator Alley. And there was probably 3 different times where I just randomly got pulled over in my little pickup truck and got my truck searched.
Wow,
Yeah.
really?
Not smuggling drugs, nothing like that. But there was a time when they would just pick off random cars, like a huge percentage of them, and just search them. And for some reason,
And you let them search? Like you just,
I was like 17.
of course, what are you going to do?
old.
Yeah, you don't know you have rights back
right.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Why would they
I never
think
got
you
anything
were...
planted on me or anything. Like they never.
Yeah, I don't think cops really have a reason to plant shit on you, right? I mean, they've, of course, you know, there's been huge scandals like the Rampart scandal in LA in the 90s where cops were literally working for the gangs. They would hire like gang affiliated people to work on the police force, and they would plant shit on like
I didn't even
enemies
know about
and
that.
shit. Yeah, Rampart scandal's wild, but yeah, cops nowadays usually aren't going to plant shit on like if you're a 17-year-old kid, right? But it's crazy to think they would search your car. Were you smoking weed?
No.
Did you look like a pothead? Maybe surfers?
Probably looked like a pothead.
You probably looked like a pothead.
Yeah.
You were a surfer kid.
Yeah.
For sure.
And a little Toyota Tacoma pickup truck, like tiny little
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of surfers, there is this, you got to look up this drug bust. They need to make a movie about this. When I was in college, we heard about these college kids, these frat guys that went to like San Diego State, and they were surfers. So what they would do, and they were also coke dealers. So what they would do is they would drive down to Mexico to re-up. They would pick up like, I'm talking real weight, like significant multi-kilo re-ups.
Yeah.
And they would build them. They would have like the cartel guys or somebody down on the Mexico side, like open up the surfboards, you know, hollow the surfboards out and stuff the kilos
I've
into the
heard of
surfboards.
this.
And then they would put them on the top of their Winnebagos or whatever. And they'd be coming through customs. They'd be like, yeah, we were just down there surfing.
Gnarly,
dude. Fucking shredding down here in Ensenada, man. And bro, they were fucking getting away with it.
Wow.
They were making millions of dollars.
On the roof of their car in plain sight.
In plain
What
sight.
A great idea.
Yeah. So that was, and they were making millions of dollars as like high school juniors.
What a
their
fucking
frat.
genius idea.
Yeah.
Man.
No shit. So I always like found that so crazy that like, you know, these white boys, probably from like rich families, you know, would take risks like that. That's cowboy shit. We never had sympathy for like guys like that didn't really need to sell drugs. I mean, I didn't need to either, but just did it. But we're so crazy with it that it was like, dude, you had this coming. You know?
Yeah, that's a funny thing too about like some of like the biggest narcos. Their kids don't normally get into that, right? They like move to the U.S. and do something respectable. It
depends, or they take it over. Like Mayo's kids, his sons are going to take the business over.
Are they really?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Luis was telling me that his kids are like, they're like big on Instagram, and they're like,
they may be, but they're also
like freely walking around the U.S.
Well, those are the guys. One of them is the guy who got caught and ratted on Chapo.
Right.
He's not going to go back to Mexico, obviously. Although there's reports. Again, I'm telling all of Luis's business, but there's reports that he actually sneaks back to Mexico to visit his father. But yes, those 2 kids are out of the game, or maybe one of them was never in the game. But there's 2 guys got like 7 or 8 kids. So 2 of his sons in Mexico still are definitely taking over the business. It happens. That's how it happens with the Calabrian mob, the 'Ndrangheta in Calabria, Italy. It's all lineage. It's all passed down.
Right.
That's how it happens. That's how they monopolize the trade, is that you can't just join it like you can in the US. There's no free market. It's all passed down through lineage. So I think a huge part of the game is passing it on to your kids. But in the US, that their kids go legit. That's the American dream. Like that's the reason that the mob in New York has to go to the other side. They have to go to Sicily now to recruit new members, because their kids generally, for the most part, are like going into the legitimate world. And I think they want to, you know? So it's much less of a cultural thing. And it's more of just like, starts out in the US as just a way to survive. And hopefully your kids become legit. That's what's cool. That's what I always loved about the criminal's dream, was being able to go straight after that.
Yes.
Like that's what I say on my podcast.
Definitely.
The criminal's dream is to no longer be a criminal. So that's I was living proof of that almost. Like I was gonna get out of the game and have millions and just funnel it into legit businesses. And it would have set me up for the rest of my life if I could have pulled it off. You know, I just didn't get out in time. I got too greedy.
Yeah. You know, that's one of the funny things. I want you, when you get Roger in, you got to ask him how many waterfront mansions he still owns.
Yeah. Yeah.
He talks about he bought all of his friends' fucking houses back then.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to ask him about that. I'll ask him on the Patreon episode where his money is, how much money he
gotta
still.
still have. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you're buying them for other people as gifts, technically you don't own them anymore.
Yeah.
But I wonder
how much money he got away with. Yeah.
How much money he still has access to if he needed it.
Yeah, right. Well, he's so connected, he could probably get back into the game really quickly, but he'll never do that. I hope not. But yeah, I mean, he made hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions.
And this is back in the 70s, right? But was he active after the 70s?
Yeah, I think 80s.
He was.
Yeah.
I think he was active. Yeah, he fell in he originally got arrested in the 80s.
When did Barry Seal get killed?
Early 80s.
Early 80s?
I believe. Well, we could probably look that up.
Yeah, find out when Barry Seal got whacked. And then
it might have been the mid to late 80s.
I think Roger was in prison when Barry died.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that would have been the 80s. So he was in prison the whole time Roger was in prison from the 80s until like 2016?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep, on multiple different continents.
Oh, wow. So he died in 86.
86, okay.
Yeah.
So Roger was locked up probably.
Roger was already locked up. He got locked up at, I think 82. Does Roger Reeves have a page? Have a Wikipedia page?
I don't know. It's a good question. Google him. You know, so it's a funny thing too, talking about like the lineage of some of these drug dealers. Have you ever seen Pablo's son?
Yes. He's fat like Pablo.
Super fat and like super ghetto, like super hood.
Interesting.
On his Instagram.
I thought he was a dork. Maybe he has multiple sons because one of them was a nerd who they moved to Argentina, right? After Pablo got killed, the family relocated to Argentina. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's not safe for them in Colombia anymore. Okay, everybody is dead that worked with Pablo. But
look at him. Look at old Roger.
He's on a podcast right there in that episode.
American pilot who was once the most prolific drug smuggler in history.
He worked for Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel.
He claims that Seal paid millions in bribes to the Clintons.
Yes.
Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas.
Wait to ask him about that. I'm scared for Roger. I'm scared when he's open with this information. It makes me worried for him.
You know, when he talks about it, he doesn't like, he's like, of course.
Yeah.
He's like, it's no secret. Of
right.
course.
He's that's what makes me believe him is he's very matter of fact about it. You know what I mean? Millions in bribes to the Clintons when Bill Clinton was governor. Is that in order to let them use Mina, right?
To let them use the airport, right?
Yeah, in Mina.
Yeah, he was. So Barry would have dinner with the Clintons. He goes, I'm having dinner with the governor, Roger. And he's like, yep.
So the Clintons, if we're to believe that would mean that the Clintons would then take millions of dollars, but then who would they? I'm fascinated. How would corruption at that level work? They would then tell the people that worked at Mina, like, hey, some planes are don't you touch these guys.
I guess because Barry said that I can land in Mina, Arkansas whenever I want, any time of day. He's like, any day of the week that I want. He's like, it just costs $1 million. It's like $1 million per load.
Wow.
So he had a green light in the airport in Mina.
Right.
In perpetuity, as long as like it was a certain fee, I guess.
Right.
Per time.
Right. So the thought is, the Clintons are taking cash bribes and probably paying off, whoever's in charge of like making decisions for the military in Arkansas. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Like that would kind of make sense.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
Sort of fucking corruption.
I don't know, because the Clintons can't just take money and then call down. Bill Clinton's not going to call the airport in Mina and be like,
Right.
Hey, we got some. You leave this boy alone. He's gonna be bringing
Right.
something in.
Yeah. No, I guess there was some sort of protection that was always there when they landed. Like,
Right.
there would be like vehicles
An
that would show
escort,
up
yeah.
and escort
So
them.
everybody's getting paid out of that.
Everybody must be getting
everybody's
paid.
getting paid out of
You know
that.
who's like the foremost authority on this whole fucking topic, who actually wrote a book on it? You've probably heard of the guy. His name's Sean Atwood.
Yes.
Bald dude, lives in the
Yes,
UK. He
that's
wrote
right.
he wrote like a series of books all about this time in history
Wow.
and all about the Clintons. It's called like
Collusion with.
yeah, the title of the book is like, find out the name of his. Okay,
That's not Beyond the Pale Horse.
he wrote a ton of books. Click on like the list of his books. It's called like The Boys on the Tracks or something like that.
Wow.
Keep scrolling. It's one of his first books. There it is with the Clinton. What's that one called? Clinton, Bush, and CIA.
conspiracies.
But there's,
Interesting.
yeah, so he has multiple books on the Clintons and the Bushes and basically all of the quote unquote suicides that the Clintons have been involved in.
Right.
The
right,
first
right.
ones were like a couple of boys that were tied up to some railroad
to some
tracks.
railroad tracks.
Yep.
Yes.
And that was
yes.
supposed to be a suicide.
Right. And they were the guys who stumbled on. They were just playing in the woods, you
Yep.
know,
Yeah,
and
man.
I think they stumbled upon like one of the planes
Yep.
being unloaded.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, okay, that was the name of the book. The name of the book is it's like blah, 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 something from the boys on the tracks to Jeffrey Epstein. And he ties everything from the beginning, from the boys on the tracks, all the way to Jeffrey Epstein, everything about the Clintons.
Wow.
Like this dude went in.
And so it's
on the
pretty
Clintons.
investigative.
Super investigative. Like
Okay.
he went deep on
Wow,
all of it.
yeah.
Man.
Yeah. God damn it. That is so fucking crazy.
Yeah. it's
Yeah.
good.
They've been dirty since the beginning.
I just saw an ad on YouTube yesterday. Have you ever seen ads for that thing called Masterclass?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
They got one with fucking Bill Clinton now.
Yes. Right. To teach about politics.
Oh
I'm like,
my God.
Who better to teach about politics though?
Oh
That's really
my
what politics are.
Lord.
Yeah, politics are corrupt and dirty and murderous sometimes.
I want to buy that masterclass just
Yeah,
so I can
no
hear what fucking
shit,
Bill's
dude.
spewing on there.
No shit. Passive
Look at this shit, bro.
on leadership.
On leadership
By
of
the way-
all things.
By the way, do they really need money?
Play the
Do they
trailer.
need more money?
Play
Like,
the
why are
trailer.
they doing
Oh
this?
my God. They don't.
This is insane.
If you want to lead something, start by saying, "This is what I care about. This is what I
$1
want
million
to do,
bucks
and
a
why
week.
I think you should care
$1 million
about it,
bucks
and
landed.
You should want to help." Hardly a day goes by that I don't think how fast my life has flown. How I remember as if it were yesterday, the first day I became president.
Oh God!
Oh
the
my
bushes.
God. Look at
You
this.
can
All the bushes.
It can be done alone. This is a particularly disorienting time for billions of people in the world. You've got major uncertainties about what's going to happen in the years ahead. At a time like that, you really need good leadership skills. And you need people whose goal it is
Roger
to pull
Reeves and
people
Barry Seal.
together, not drive them apart. People need to feel the potential to create a better tomorrow. This class is unlike anything I've ever done. I'll be teaching skills I developed and used in very challenging leadership
From
positions.
Jeffrey Epstein
And
on
I
Fuck
hope
Island.
that those skills will help you in your
You ever
personal and
banged a
professional lives.
you ever banged a woman with a
You've gotta work
cigar?
with people you don't agree with.
You ever fucking with a
May
cigar?
not even
It's
like.
not technically cheap.
And,
Oh
how to
my-
And you don't have
mediate
to wash your
conflict.
dick after.
I don't believe being nice is inconsistent with being tough and smart. You got to be tough as nails with your tender heart. I have encountered a lot of setbacks. I
This
lost
is
2 elections after
psychotic.
I entered politics. I've had ferocious opposition.
This
where
is
the
wild.
whole
That's
strategy
you-
was to
that you
try
can
to
end it.
destroy me as a person.
Holy shit!
How fucking wild.
I mean,
is
how
that,
much
bro?
could he be making off of it? Like
I don't
they're
know.
worth
They gotta
hundreds of
make
millions
some-
already.
yeah.
Like, what do they need? They're just real. Like, they're just real.
That's weird. Who's signing up for this? What kind of people? Like, think about it. Could you put yourself in the shoes of somebody who is gonna be fucking sold on this?
Oh yeah, MSNBC, and the people that work in for the major news outlets. They're like, yeah, we're gonna get Clinton because what an American. What did he do for America? He raised the minimum wage by $1, I think, by the time he was out of office. Sure, he wrote the super predator bill. Sure, he took millions of dollars from in bribes from cocaine dealers. You know, sure, he locked up more black people than like all Republicans combined. Did you know that, by the way?
I didn't know that.
It wasn't Reagan. Reagan's blamed in the mass media for like the war on drugs and, you know, all of these like policies that targeted like, you know, black crack dealers and shit. He didn't give a fuck originally. He was like, he had that old school racism where he was like, just let the animals, you know, whatever. We don't care about what's going on. Just let him. Like, he didn't give a shit at all.
Yeah.
It wasn't until he was kind of like forced by like pressure, public pressure to come in and like start getting tough on crime and shit like that. But it wasn't until the Clintons that the prison population started exploding. And Biden was involved in all that shit too.
Wow.
Yeah. Exploding. Yeah.
I remember seeing some of the old videos of Biden during that time.
Yeah.
Like in front of Congress saying some shit.
They're coming after. If you're selling drugs to my mother, you do not deserve to be walking around. Why is your fucking mother buying crack?
Oh my God.
Your mother's buying crack cocaine? Wow.
Yeah,
bro. Dude. Oh my God.
I feel like we're living in the twilight zone.
Yeah, it's done. It's like, it feels like society, when you watch the Bushes now, who probably also have an Instagram account, when you watch George W. Bush, who's killed more people like than all of like the cartel members combined in all of history, like you see him giving a master class and everybody being like, haha, isn't that like politely clapping? You're just like, this is some 1984 Big Brother type shit. Like how quickly we forget, you know?
Yeah.
Like we're applauding Dick Cheney for coming out against Trump. We're applauding this guy for doing the right thing,
Dude.
Who's literally the biggest war criminal, like since, you know, Slobodan Milosevic, you name it, the Khmer Rouge, fucking any kind of millions of people dead, ISIS, all that shit, all goes back to those guys conscientiously coming up with that propaganda campaign.
I know, man. And it's crazy too how more and more of these things that we always thought were like conspiracy cover-ups are like being declassified.
Yeah. It all comes out. It all comes
like
out. But
shit,
it's
like when you see, I don't know if you see shit be declassified, like Operation Northwoods.
Oh, tell me about that. That was
Operation Northwoods was under Kennedy with the head of the CIA, Allen Dulles. They had a plan to, in order to justify invading Cuba, they were going to fly empty airliner
and blow it up.
Cuba and blow it up and claim the Cubans did it.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
That was their plan to invade Cuba.
Sounds like something that happened under the Bushes, right?
Yeah.
So this is not like anything new. This is something that's, you know, these are CIA deep state tactics that have grown and evolved and been passed down since World War II, since the beginning of what became the CIA.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it all comes out, but it's always after they're dead. It's always so nobody has to take responsibility for it. So we'll know who killed Kennedy maybe in our lifetimes, right?
I saw something just came out about that yesterday.
Well, didn't Biden push it back? Biden didn't.
I don't know, maybe.
I think Biden gave an order to not let that come out.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That might be a Google it, Jamie.
Here's my thing though. What the fuck would change if they admitted they killed Kennedy?
Right.
Like what would change?
Yeah.
Like, okay, there was a CIA plot. Yeah, the CIA was involved. The guy was whatever. He wasn't acting alone. He was a patsy. And
what would change in
who
Americans?
would really, I mean, think of how many people would fucking pay attention to it, first of all.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't be like, okay, whatever. We all knew that already.
I think what would change is that we certainly wouldn't be
Biden official
sued over delayed release of JFK assassination records. So I'm not sure why. Like they didn't really talk about why they delayed them.
But it's absolutely a fucking conspiracy cover up by the government. If you pay attention to any of it.
Yep. So I don't know what would change. That's a great question. I think enough people would notice. I mean, people already don't trust anything anymore.
Right.
Thanks to the power of the internet. But if it came out that the government whacked Kennedy, I think it would hurt Democrats more. It would hurt Republicans too, but it would hurt Democrats more because right now most of the mainstream media is a mouthpiece of the like corporate Democratic Party.
Right.
That's what I think. So so I think it would change. I think it would sway voting.
Interesting.
But still, it doesn't matter. Like, there's no good candidates on either side. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how it would have changed like the future of America. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you could get a guy like Bernie Sanders, right? Whether you agree with all of his policies or not, he's a guy that wanted to change the status quo. So maybe a guy like that could get in because enough people, there would be enough pressure to get like a third party candidate in,
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
Have you seen the video of Trump being asked about 9/11 on the golf course and they're interviewing him?
No.
And he's like, well, there's a lot we don't know about 9/11.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit that we don't know
Right.
about 9/11. We don't have the full story.
He's just keeping it real, dude. He's saying what we're all thinking and talking about on podcasts. So he's back. If this
That's
was
crazy that he's saying that, though.
if this were the 60s, he probably would have been assassinated. They probably would have tried to hit him if this were the 60s. They don't do that anymore. But but what he's saying, he's saying what Kennedy essentially was saying, like after he made the switch, like in 63, early 63, maybe it was late 62, he made that speech where he was like, we're not going to pursue this Cold War thing against the Russians anymore. We're going a different way.
Yeah,
we're taking society to a peaceful route. We're not going to prop up the military industrial complex. Like, he made that switch,
right?
And that's what got him killed.
Right.
And amongst other things with like the mafia and his brother, investigating and putting cases on the mob after they got him elected, all that shit, fueled it. But it was really when he said, hey, we're going to take society into a different direction. That's what got him killed. So Trump was kind of saying that.
Yeah.
And that's why, they came after him with Russiagate,
Man, what do you think's gonna happen? Gonna happen when he fucking runs for president again?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
have you thought about that at all?
I haven't. I don't have the bandwidth. I can't even think about it. I can't think about like what Twitter is gonna look like. All these fucking talking heads.
I forgot Elon put him back on Twitter.
He puts back on Twitter.
He won't tweet.
Yeah, exactly. I love that though. He pisses everybody off.
He's talking shit about Elon. He's like, he was on his knees crying, eating out of my hands.
Dude, he's so funny. He's so fucking funny, bro.
Dude.
Yeah. So he's really gonna run again. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. It could be cataclysmic, or he might just not. He might not poll well at all and might not even make it could be uneventful. It could go both ways, or it could go the other way where they're calling for mass emergencies and they're taking rights away. And,
right.
That's where the South steps up.
Right.
When you guys stepped up, like I don't like the fact that everybody walks around with guns down here, but I'll tell you what, that kept us from going full China during the lockdowns. I tell you, it was Texas and Florida and all these places that have so many guns that you just couldn't attempt to mandate anything like that because people will rebel.
Yeah.
So that really does keep the government. That's what it dawned on me. I'm a good liberal kid from Oregon, but I saw that and I was like, it's probably a good thing that especially in this country, that the population's armed.
The guns. I think it was more like the politicians.
Yeah, but it is.
Like that saved that like DeSantis
yeah,
what he did with like the lockdowns, like
right.
He came out glistening out of that
for sure. They should probably run him over Trump, But yeah, it is kind of all backed up because the feds could Now we're just talking crazy.
Not that
right
many
now.
people have guns down here. It's a very small minority.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Most people here, I guarantee, 99% of the people that live here and that are here in this area, right in Florida right now, they're not from Florida.
Oh,
they're from the fucking north. They're from the Northeast.
They're retired.
They're retired. They come down here. They're snowbirds, or they move down here from the north. Like this is such a transient area.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And there's so many progress, like liberal type people or older people that are from those liberal states that come down here. There's a very small group of people down here who are like big, like gun toting.
Oh, wow.
It's not. I don't think it's like. I don't really know much. I don't spend much time in Texas, but.
Texas, I think there's more guns. Texas
Definitely,
is way bigger, and there's so many big cities, and everybody's got. I promise you, everybody except for now Austin, but most people there have guns too. So everybody's got guns in Texas.
Yeah,
I do think it is. I just think if the federal government were to ever get so crazy to think, they're defying our whatever emergency orders, the state governors are.
Yeah.
We're going to send the feds to the Capitol building. I think they just wouldn't do that because they'd be like, oh wow, no, they're more strapped than us. The same reason that the military won't go in and try to arrest old El Mayo Zambada down there in Sinaloa.
Right.
Because it's going to be hell to pay. Like a lot of people are be getting killed. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine if that day came.
Oh no, it can't, dude. Like that'll be the end of. I don't know. Maybe it's inevitable that the United States breaks up.
Yeah.
Somehow, but I hope it's not bloody. But I don't see how else it could be because, like, say if Texas wants to split away from the feds, well, the feds want that revenue. Like the federal government is not in the business of like getting smaller. Like the government is not in the business of getting smaller. It's just this gigantic monolith that needs to keep eating, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's got to get paid, and it's natural that it would try to grow. It's like the prison population, right? It's so against their interest to like let it reduce.
Yeah.
So I just think if Texas or whoever, California tried to break away, the feds would send armed people in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, it would take something crazy like that to fix us, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have like a lot of the like countries in Europe, they don't fucking operate the same way we do.
Of course.
Money and getting people sick and medicating people and prison, industrial complex.
We live in a sick fucking society, man.
And over there, they've already been through fucking hell and back.
They've been through it all. That's what it is. We're just not, we just haven't evolved. We just haven't been around as long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Colin Quinn is a great joke though, making that one of the greatest comedians, Colin Quinn, he's talking about the fact that like it's crazy that this country's this big. When you look at Europe, that's why it's cut off into so many different countries because culture is different.
Right.
Like he's like, and then his joke is, you can't tell me that Bulgaria and Spain have less in common than New Jersey and Utah. You know what I mean? Like, and it's totally true. Like there's a reason that borders and mountains are used as like these natural barriers because like we're not meant to have this gigantic community. It's impossible.
Right.
You're meant to focus on what's going on in your own community.
It makes it better.
Yeah.
It makes it better. Like we're not meant to manage this many people. It's like it doesn't work.
Yeah. The only question, the only big concern is if once we're split up into 5, 6, 7, 8 countries, who the big superpower, who's that going to be?
Right.
I don't know. It's not going to be China. China's fucked. Everybody thinks China's about to be the next thing. They're not.
No.
They're not. That's the only thing. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's better that maybe there is no
more distribution of threat and
power. That's what it is. It's better that everything gets decentralized. You know what I mean? I think.
I don't think we're ever going to solve it in our lifetime, but it's definitely fun to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it makes for good clickbait, dude.
Yeah. We're going to get about a fucking 5 million epic viral shorts from this podcast.
We'll get a nice pop. Hopefully your channel gets a nice little pop. Dude.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, bro. I really appreciate it. Tell people where they can follow your shit and subscribe.
Yes, please go watch The Connect on YouTube and on Spotify, iTunes. You can listen to it as well. And we're putting up 2 episodes a week. If you just if you type in The Connect with Johnny Mitchell, I'll pop right up on YouTube. We have a documentary episode every week where we travel to all of these different kind of interesting cartel places and do crazy shit like that. And then I have a podcast where I interview people once a week as well.
What's that one called?
That's just called The Connect as well.
Okay,
we're just dropping interviews. Yeah. We're not even.
What's your other podcast with the dude with the long hair?
Oh, Leo. We don't do that anymore. That was called The Fuck Man. That was the comedy's coming. But right now I want people to go check The Connect out.
Okay.
But you can follow if you like stand-up comedy, go to my page, Johnny Mitchell on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram. That's a big one. At Mr. Johnny Mitchell. That's where I'm posting all my alerts and my show dates when I'm out on the road doing comedy or when I'm in Los Angeles. So yeah, those are the big ones: YouTube and Instagram.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, bro. I'll link it all below.
That's it. Thanks
That's
for having me
baby.
on, buddy.
Goodbye, world.
All right.